Chapter 24:10. Lang Yin and Shixian. The battles were fierce and tragic. Ji Liao finished 7th. He was quite strong. Lin Feng and his teachers continued chatting while watching the battles. It reminded Lin Feng of when he was younger. "Lin Feng, how do you feel?" asked Mu Chen. "The members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty and the Canaan Buddhist dynasty aren't very talented. They just know more things. Ji Liao has a good understanding of cosmic energies," Lin Feng replied calmly. "Brother Lin Feng, how powerful are your cosmic energies?" Ling asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng laughed and said, "So. Is that so? I hope we'll exchange views on cultivation. You're my father's disciple, so you're my fellow disciple," said Ling, glancing at Mu Chen. "But Lin Feng is much stronger than your daddy now. He'd be a much better teacher than me." When Lin Feng was an emperor, he had an advanced knowledge and deep understanding of cosmic energies already. Mu Chen laughed. "All right, I'll teach you whatever you want to learn," Lin Feng smiled. It was Mu Chen's daughter. She was like his child. She called Lin Feng brother, but to him, she was a baby, and he wanted to take care of her. "That's a promise then." Ling grinned. "Of course. Lin Feng, the second round is starting. I don't think we'll be as lucky. I told him to give up if he was in danger," said Emperor Yu. Ji Liao walked over and said to Lin Feng, "Master, thank you very much." Lin Feng had told him to fight as hard as he could. He had done it fearlessly and had lost. But when that attack, which should have been deadly, reached him, a strange kind of strength protected him. "No need to thank me. Continue practicing cultivation really hard. You have potential," said Lin Feng encouragingly. "Thank you very much, Master," said Ji Liao. He could sense that Lin Feng was terrifyingly strong. "Ji Liao, go and watch your big fellow disciples battle," Emperor Yu told Ji Liao. He watched a young man battle. That young man was a high-level emperor. Such cultivators were strong enough to have a good ranking in town, a bit like those who were on the imperial ranking list back then. "His chi is stable." "Not bad," said Lin Feng, glancing at the young man. "Lin Feng, he's Ruoxia's disciple. His name is Lang Yan. He understands speed Dao strength already. His Dao is already low level. His comprehension abilities are not bad. He also understands heaviness Dao. He could finish in the top 5. Emperor Yu told Lin Feng. 2 sorts of Dao low level, how rare indeed. He could be quite strong in the future, agreed Lin Feng. But he can't finish first, that's for sure. Initially, he was the second most outstanding disciple, and the first one betrayed Tiantai back, then to go to the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Back then, Qing Lin and the others taught him a lot. Nobody thought he'd betray Tiantai, said Emperor Yu coldly, gazing into the distance. Lin Feng was stupefied. Lang Yin controlled 2 sorts of Dao, and the other one was stronger than him back then? That traitor seemed extremely strong indeed. Lin Feng's fellow disciples had even taught him a lot. And still he had betrayed Tiantai. His name is Shixian. He also understands 2 sorts of Dao, very powerful sorts of Dao, Dark Light Dao and Speed Dao. His attacks are explosive. Back then, Qing Lin and the others thought they weren't suitable teachers for him. Only Jian Meng was. But Jian Meng doesn't want disciples, so he only helped him a couple of times, but that's all. Shixian was left alone a little, explained Emperor Yu. At the same time, Lin Feng noticed a young man in the group of people of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Many great emperors were sitting next to him. He didn't look proud, he looked sly and wildly ambitious. No wonder my teachers are angry. If you're good to someone and they betray you, that's pretty bad, thought Lin Feng. How ungrateful. But many people were wildly ambitious and hoped to rise quickly. That Shixian is good at pretending. He looked good in the past. Now he looks quite sinister, said Emperor Yu calmly. Shixian looked at them calmly, then at Lin Feng in a sharp way. Lin Feng grunted icily. Shixian looked at him aggressively. Lin Feng looked back at him, and instantly Shixian's eyes felt horribly painful, and he closed them. Shixian reopened his eyes, and didn't dare look at Lin Feng again. He thought, that guy is strong. He's stronger than Emperor Yu. He's even stronger than Ho Qing Lin. I wonder who he is. He didn't injure me though, he's too proud. He doesn't want to fight against me because I'm a junior. Lang Yan, shouted Lin Feng at that moment. Lang Yin raised his head. Come here, said Lin Feng. Lang Yin looked at Emperor Yu and Mu Chun. They nodded. He went over to Lin Feng. How may I call you, master? Asked Lang Yin to Lin Feng. He was seated between the two teachers, so he was probably very strong. It was best to be very polite. Show me your Dao. Attack me, said Lin Feng, ignoring Lang Yan's question. He was interested in Dao, and put Ling aside. Lang Yan was surprised, but he nodded. He stretched out his hand, pointed at Lin Feng and attacked. His attack was very quick. Slow, said Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lang Yan had the impression he had become as slow as a snail. It felt like his hands were extremely far from Lin Feng. How strong! Lang Yan was shaking. He saw Lin Feng's finger point at him, and knew that if Lin Feng attacked him, he would be killed easily. Lang Yan was being pushed backwards. He nearly fell down, covered with cold sweat. He looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was still seated, and remained motionless. His slow and fast strengths are extremely efficient, much better than mine, thought Lang Yan. He was astonished. He didn't understand how strong Lin Feng was. Please teach me, master, said Lang Yan, bowing before Lin Feng. He knew Lin Feng was extraordinary. Study the details, said Lin Feng calmly. Suddenly, Lang Yan sensed something and fell asleep. He started dreaming. He saw a leaf move towards him extremely slowly. However, it also seemed fast at the same time. He moved back, but it was useless. The leaf flew past his head. Phew. Lang Yan took a deep breath. He had thought he was going to die. I'm still alive, thought Lang Yan, shaking. Where am I? Another leaf moved towards him, but this time, it was fast, and contained a hidden slowing. How strong! Lang Yan studied for a long while. The dream seemed to last forever. When Lang Yan came out, the second round was over already. He bowed before Lin Feng and said, Thank you very much for your lesson, master. He's your teacher's fellow disciple. Emperor Yu said to Lang Yan. My teacher's fellow disciple? Lang Yan was astonished. One of Tiantai's direct disciples. Which one? How strong could it be? Lang Yan was staring at Lin Feng, bowed deeply and said, Thank you very much, Uncle Lin. Haha, little boy, you're smart, said Emperor Yu. It wasn't difficult, he's so strong. Lang Yan smiled. All right, go and fight, said Lin Feng, waving. Lights surrounded him and Lin Feng said, Do your best. If you defeat Xian, you'll be rewarded. I'll fight to the death. Yes, if you can kill him, help yourself. No need to be polite, Lin Feng said to Lang Yan. Lang Yan was astonished. Then, Mu Chun and Emperor Yu looked at Lin Feng and said, They can't. Lin Feng. Xian's social position is extraordinary. So what? If he can kill him, then he should, replied Lin Feng naturally. People around were shaking. Lang Yan's heart was pounding. Uncle Lin Feng was really like in the legends, aggressive and strong. Chapter 24:11. You want to die? Lang Yin jumped onto the battle stage. This round was for high-level emperors. The strong cultivator of the celestial martial dynasty had created a layer of protection around the battle stage to protect people outside. High-level emperors' battles mainly consist of comparing themselves in terms of Dao strength. I wonder if Lang Yin understood anything a moment ago, said Emperor Yu, looking at the fighters. They were already quite strong. Before the holy city became unsettled, high-level emperors were already considered very strong. The imperial ranking list is really about Dao strength, agreed Ancestor Shirtian. He probably understood something, said Lin Feng. He had created a dream for Lang Yan. He had realized the boy was very talented. In a dream, time passed differently than in the outside world. Even though Lang Yan hadn't been able to spend much time in the dream, it had probably been very beneficial to him. More than 100 people were present, their chi dashing to the skies. Xian was standing there. Nobody dared offend him. People usually knew about the strongest cultivators of their generation. Back in the days, Lin Feng also knew how strong other famous people were. Xian was extremely strong, so nobody dared offend him. He was first on the imperial ranking list. But at that moment, he frowned and then smiled indifferently. Lang Yan, you think you're strong enough to fight against me now? Xian, you betrayed Tiantai. A battle is inevitable, replied Lang Yan icily. Is that so? Said Xian. looking at him in a disdainful way and adding, "A moment ago, that guy next to Emperor Yu taught you something? He looked familiar. But who do you think he is? You think he can teach you a few things quickly, and that you're now strong enough to defeat me? Do you know who my teacher is? These days, my teacher taught many things. We'll see when we fight," said Lang Yan, closing his eyes. They didn't start fighting immediately. After all, Lang Yan was a high-level emperor too, very strong, third on the imperial ranking list. Nobody wanted to offend him either. They both remained motionless. After that, Lang Yan won all his battles. Lin Feng smiled when he saw that. "Emperor Yu said, Lang Yan didn't use speed Dao? He only relied on heaviness Dao. He wants to use his trump cards in the end then, I guess. The battles at the top of the imperial ranking list are going to start. Lang Yan is lucky, he's going to fight against 4th place, said Mu Chen. Shi Xian was going to fight against 2nd place. How strong? Lang Yan easily defeated his opponent, even though he was extremely fast, said Emperor Yu a moment later. They turned around and were startled. Shi Xian instantly killed his opponent, sword light streaking across the sky and cutting him apart. That guy is even slyer than Jian Mang, said Lin Feng, looking at Shi Xian. That guy harbored evil intentions. Tiantai had raised him, and he had betrayed them. He was even becoming a problem for Tiantai. Lang Yan, the next one to die will be you, said Shi Xian, pointing at Lang Yan. He slowly turned around and looked at Emperor Yu, smiling icily. Emperor Yu and Emperor Shi, you're weaker than me now. You're not qualified to be leaders. If I became the leader of Tiantai, maybe I'd manage to make it shine again. Bastard, shouted Emperor Yu icily. You shameless traitor. Strength is the most important thing in the world. You're weaklings, and you couldn't teach me anything. I had to find someone else to teach me. Why would I waste my time with weaklings? Said Shi Xian. He was wildly ambitious and arrogant too. Shut the hell up, shouted Lang Yan explosively. Today, one of us is going to die. I will fight against you. Shi Xian's sword twinkled. He wasn't as strong as a Canaan Buddhist monk, but the battle was going to be dazzling. A dazzling sword shone out. People couldn't open their eyes anymore. Intent. Lang Yan closed his eyes and remembered the dream Lin Feng had created for him. How ridiculous. When Shi Xian saw that Lang Yan had closed his eyes, he looked at him icily. Slow, said Lang Yan. Suddenly, everything became slower around him. It was his own intent. He had control over his surroundings. Shi Xian's sword suddenly slowed down. Shi Xian frowned. Lang Yan seemed to have an advanced understanding of Dao. But so what? Die. A dozen dark swords appeared and streaked across the sky. Slow down, shouted Lang Yan. His eyes were still firmly closed. At the same time, he struck out with his hand and thunder rolled. A gigantic heavy hand appeared in the air and shot out. It was faster than his opponent's dark swords. One of Shi Xian's swords pierced through the gigantic hand, startling everyone. Usually, Shi Xian could kill people silently without anybody noticing. But this time he didn't manage to kill Lang Yan. Shi Xian turned into a beam of light, and he flew past Lang Yan in the sky. Where are you going? Shouted Lang Yan explosively. He released more slow energy. When cultivators became stronger, slow and fast strength could be really terrifying. Heavy strength, shouted Lang Yan furiously. Shi Xian was stupefied when he sensed Lang Yan's Dao strength. It was already so powerful, and now it was high level, not low level anymore. How was that possible? How had Lang Yan done that? Lang Yan disappeared, then reappeared close to Shi Xian, pointing at Shi Xian with his finger. At that moment, he remembered everything Lin Feng had shown him in the dream. He had seen one finger, it didn't contain strength, but it was extremely fast. When Shi Xian saw that, his expression changed drastically. His sword descended from the sky. Sword lights flashed. But at the same time Lang Yan kept slowing him down. Blood splashed. Lang Yan had stabbed Shi Xian in the chest. Explode! Shouted Lang Yan explosively. Shi Xian's body crackled as he threw a sword at Lang Yan. Slow, said Lang Yan when he saw that attack. He wanted to kill Shi Xian, no matter what. Heavy strength. Lang Yan's Dao was now very powerful, his attacks brutal. Shi Xian was injured, and threw out his sword. The heavy strength coupled with slow strength gave him a hard time. He was starting to feel danger. Lang Yin dodged the sword. Everybody was astonished. This duel had already exceeded all their expectations, and it was a very beautiful fight. The most surprising thing was that the cultivators were competing in terms of speed. They were both as fast as lightning. "Enough!" shouted someone loudly. An overwhelming strength oppressed Lang Yin. He had the impression he was going to collapse. Shixian flew up in the air. "This battle is over," said one of the organizers, glancing at Lang Yin. "You're talented. You can join the Celestial Martial Dynasty and become a saint's disciple." "Bullshit," said Lang Yin furiously. "The Celestial Martial Dynasty is despicable. You got involved in our battle. You are pitiful and ridiculous. I would never become a member of the Celestial Martial Dynasty." "You're humiliating the Celestial Martial Dynasty? Die," said that person icily. The crowd was stunned at the quick escalation. It was how the Celestial Martial Dynasty handled things. Lang Yin had refused to join the Celestial Martial Dynasty and had humiliated them. That was an excuse for them to kill him. Only the Canaan Dynasty could compete with them. If anyone else dared offend them, they died. No reason was needed. "He wants to die. Go and kill him," ordered Lin Feng. A group of people jumped forwards and released a terrifying death chi. The referee was stunned. He turned on them and shouted, "Insolent! You dare cause trouble during the grand ceremony." "Die!" shouted someone in return. The referee sensed some terrifying death energies surround him. A strong wind blew past him. A great rock streaked across the sky, and blood sprayed. The referee was beheaded, his head flying away. His eyes were still open, and from the expression on his face, one could guess he couldn't believe it. He had just gotten killed. He had just gotten killed during the grand ceremony of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Everybody was astonished. People who weren't even members of the Canaan Dynasty dared cause trouble there? Even the members of the Canaan Dynasty wouldn't have dared do such a thing there, right? Chapter 24:12. Saint Someone dared suddenly kill people ruthlessly. The crowd was astonished, took a deep breath, and continued watching. 3 figures were floating in the air. One of them was a strong cultivator with dark wings and sharp eyes. It was a great rock. Bestial chi kept emerging from his body. "That's a great imperial beast, a great rock. He controls wind and death strength. His speed was incredible. He killed the referee instantly," thought the crowd. He was actually a celestial emperor. He's from Tiantai. Since when does Tiantai dare act recklessly and audaciously like that? How could they kill a member of the Celestial Martial Dynasty like that? They're insane. Many people were looking at the members of Tiantai. In the Holy City, most people who had lived there for a long time knew Lin Feng. And when they noticed Lin Feng between Emperor Yu and Mu Chun, they were stunned. They hadn't paid attention to the members of Tiantai a moment before, so they hadn't seen him. He's back. No wonder. Lin Feng had destroyed many ancient holy clans in the past. There was nothing he didn't dare do. Killing the Celestial Martial Dynasty's referee wasn't a problem for him, either. The crowd knew that Lin Feng was supported by some saints. Lin Feng is back. The battles are going to be fun. The Celestial Martial Dynasty, the Canaan Dynasty, and now Lin Feng. Will Lin Feng become the 3rd pillar of the Holy City? Wondered many people. Lin Feng was supported by saints behind the scenes, and by Champion University in Tiantai officially. He had power and influence. Lin Feng. At that moment, on the side of the Canaan Dynasty, a Buddhist monk looked at Lin Feng and smiled. Lin Feng remembered him. He had dazzled during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. It was Dozhan Sung. Decades had passed, and he had become a cultivator of the Shengdi layer. He was outstanding. "Brother Lin Feng, they're all staring at you," whispered Ling. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Even though he wasn't on the battle stage today, people still paid attention to him. But he didn't care. It wasn't important to him. On the side of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, a group of people rose up into the air. They all looked furious as they flew towards the battle stage. "Those who dare cause trouble here must die," shouted one of them icily. He released a wave of overwhelming energies. The Celestial Martial Dynasty had organized the grand ceremony. How could they let anyone ruin the event? The Celestial Martial Dynasty organized this event, but only to cause trouble. The referee dared commit all kinds of outrages. The grand ceremony is completely unfair. From now on, Tiantai is in charge of the grand ceremony, not the celestial martial dynasty, said someone next to Lin Feng. Instantly, the atmosphere became silent. Besides, Shi Xian and Lang Yan's battle isn't over. Nobody can get involved. It's a battle to the death, which will end only when one of them wins, said that person. As if Tiantai had already taken control of the grand ceremony. 3 people surrounded the battle stage. They didn't kill Shi Xian. They surrounded Shi Xian and Lang Yan, so that they could finish their battle. What could the celestial martial dynasty say about that? Shi Xian pulled a long face. He hadn't thought he would lose against Lang Yan. He hadn't thought Tiantai could oppress the celestial martial dynasty. On the battle stage, someone stood up. Around him, other people stood up. They looked calm and composed. Or at least they tried. From their eyes, one could see a terrifying chill. Who dared act so arrogantly and recklessly? Elder, that guy's name is Lin Feng. He's a genius of Champion University. He's supported by saints, and back in the days, he destroyed a few ancient holy clans. He's very strong, said someone telepathically. The person in the middle frowned and said calmly, "Those who dare cause trouble here must die." We obey. People started moving in all directions. Their chi was ominous. They were all celestial emperors. At the same time, a strong wind containing death strength started blowing. A group of people appeared behind the battle stage. The atmosphere became eerily silent and oppressive. The strong cultivators of the celestial martial dynasty all stopped moving. The elder frowned and looked at the newcomers. They were determined to confront them now. How do you want to solve the issue? Be straightforward, said the middle-aged man to Lin Feng. Have your saints come out to talk to me. You're not qualified to talk to me, said Lin Feng indifferently. The middle-aged man's face stiffened. Saints? To talk to him? How insolent. Many people were astonished. How insane, or was Lin Feng a saint? They immediately excluded the idea. Even though they couldn't see Lin Feng's cultivation level, he was probably just using a very powerful cloaking technique. Only a few decades had passed. Maybe he was a saint emperor, or even a saint emperor of the top of the Shengdi layer. But he couldn't be a saint. Saints had transcended worldliness and attained holiness. And in the past, they never saw saints in dark clouds. Saints were also usually very old. Lin Feng was much too young to be a saint. Only a few decades had passed. How could he be a cultivator of the Sheng layer? Lin Feng was probably confident because he was backed up by saints. Many people had heard that he had become a fortune shrine disciple, after ranking first, at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds back then. It explained why he was arrogant, and asked them to send saints to talk to him. The elder looked at Lin Feng icily. He said he wasn't qualified to talk to him. Even if you're a member of the fortune shrine, you're not qualified to talk to saints either. And even if you're talented, you can die anytime, said the elder, smiling icily. Lin Feng was startled. That guy knew he was a member of the fortune shrine? Fortune shrine? That's Lin Feng. Shi Xian was astonished. No wonder he found him familiar. But why did Lin Feng look so ordinary? Why didn't anyone notice him? He had no chi. He didn't look proud and sharp like his statue. You just now guessed it was my teacher's fellow disciple, Shi Xian? He just taught me. That's how my Tao broke through. He's a peerless genius. He finished first at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds. And he's a disciple of the fortune shrine. You'll never be as successful. You cannot imagine how strong he is, said Lang Yan icily. He could sense how terrifyingly strong Lin Feng was. He had been taught incredible things in only a few minutes. He had the impression that Lin Feng could kill anyone in a few seconds. Shi Xian's face froze. He knew Lin Feng. Lin Feng was famous in the holy city. In only a few years, he had become the most dazzling young cultivator of the city. Just now Lin Feng had taught Lang Yan a few things. That's how Lang Yan had become stronger than him. Continue the battle, said Lin Feng indifferently. He ignored the elder, and took control over the grand ceremony. Lang Yan released his chi. The face of the celestial martial dynasty's elder stiffened. Lin Feng disdained him. Shi Xian, you betrayed Tiantai. Today you're going to die, said Lang Yan. His speed exploded. A terrifying heavy Dao strength oppressed Shixian. Shixian released sharp sword strength. Slow, said Lang Yan, closing his eyes. He felt more confident. He had instantly become stronger after Lin Feng's teaching. Now he knew he could defeat Shixian. Everything around him became slower. It was Dao, it was intent, it was a sensation. Anything could become a deadly weapon at extremely high speeds. Even a leaf could become sharp at high speed. Lang Yan performed the same attack he had seen in the dream. His finger could become the sharpest sword. Metal clashed. Shixian's sword lights and Lang Yan's finger collided. Surprisingly, the sword lights dispersed instantly. Impossible. Shixian couldn't believe it. Lang Yan's attack didn't look extraordinary. It wasn't dazzling. How come it was so powerful? Lang Yan continued moving his finger towards Shixian's third eye. Lang Yan shouted furiously, "Die!" "Why?" shouted Shixian. That was his last word. He was a genius of the Huangqi layer. He was first on the imperial ranking list. He had become a member of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, and they had organized the grand ceremony. It was supposed to be a wonderful day for him. But Shixian, a saint's disciple, was now dead. This time Tiantai is taking big risks. They're messing around with saints now. A terrifying saint's strength filled the air and surrounded the whole crowd. People's hearts started pounding violently. Was a saint going to show up? Chapter 24:13. Troubles lie ahead. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty appeared and looked down at the crowd. Many people were wondering how the Celestial Martial Dynasty was going to deal with Tiantai. "Greeting, Your Holiness of the Celestial Martial Dynasty," said people from many different groups, standing up and bowing before the saint. In the past, saints were considered legendary cultivators, and now they had a saint in front of them. Is that a saint? I've heard that the difference between a saint and a great emperor was incredible. They aren't even comparable. Saints can easily kill entire armies of great emperors, whispered someone, looking at the saint admiringly. Before the Celestial Martial Dynasty and the Canaan Dynasty had settled in the Holy City, people had heard that Lin Feng was backed up by saints. A moment before, Tiantai had killed a saint's disciple. Lang Yan watched the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty nervously. However, he trusted Lin Feng. He was an incredible cultivator. He probably knew how to solve the issue. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the saint. He was surprised, because the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was a low-level saint, surprisingly. Such a cultivator had come to the Holy City to create the Celestial Martial Dynasty. That was very surprising. But a low-level saint didn't scare Lin Feng. "Brother Lin, you disappeared for so many years, and now you're back in the lower world. You're even interested in the grand ceremony. I'm surprised," said the saint to Lin Feng, just when everyone thought he'd be furious. He even smiled calmly. However, the crowd trembled, even more than if he had killed Lin Feng immediately. They were astonished because the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty called Lin Feng Brother Lin. He didn't address disrespectfully. Brother was a friendly way of addressing someone, but the most terrifying part was that it also proved one thing. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty considered Lin Feng someone of the same level. Otherwise, he wouldn't possibly have called him Brother Lin. How strong was Lin Feng then? Many people's hearts were pounding furiously. Lin Feng had disappeared for decades. Was he now a saint? People couldn't believe it. "I am from the Holy City, and a member of Tiantai, so of course I come back sometimes. Since you organized the grand ceremony, it should be a fun event, and not a way to oppress everybody else. I don't mind destroying the Celestial Martial Dynasty immediately, said Lin Feng calmly. The crowd was astounded. He didn't mind destroying the Celestial Martial Dynasty? The Celestial Martial Dynasty had risen in the Holy City, and apart from the Canaan Dynasty, nobody could resist them. Even though the Celestial Martial Dynasty was powerful, they didn't destroy all the other groups of the Holy City, as the 4 universities still existed. Many of their students even betrayed them to become members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Nobody minded actually. Many groups were willing to let their disciples become members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. The Celestial Martial Dynasty didn't force them outright. Many strong groups of the Holy City wanted to rise along with the celestial martial dynasty. Many people even thought it was an opportunity. However, if they decided to oppress other people, Lin Feng didn't mind teaching them a good lesson. I see. Since it's that way, I'll respect your opinion, Brother Lin. Today, we don't need referees anymore. People of the same level can fight against each other. I won't get involved. What do you think? Asked the saint of the celestial martial dynasty calmly. He didn't seem angry. All right, Lin Feng agreed. On the inside he smiled coldly. He had studied the celestial Tao destiny technique, and even though the saint of the celestial martial dynasty was extremely polite, Lin Feng could sense he was furious and wanted to kill him. He had a good intuition now. His perceptions were acute and precise. The saint of the celestial martial dynasty didn't look angry, but Lin Feng could guess he was. Lin Feng was now convinced that prophecies and predictions could be true. Back everybody, said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty, waving his hand. All the strong cultivators of the celestial martial dynasty withdrew. Lin Feng nodded, and his people went back as well. Only Lang Yan was left on the battle stage. Lang Yan, you killed a traitor who betrayed Tiantai, and you're now first on the ranking list. I would like to grant you a saint's weapon for your achievement. Great emperors won't be able to kill you. However, you can't use a saint's weapon unless you're in imminent danger of dying. When you become strong enough, I will offer you other precious items, Lin Feng said calmly. He waved and a saint's armor appeared glowing softly. It flew towards Lang Yan and stopped in front of him. A saint's weapon. People's hearts were pounding violently. Only saints could have saints' weapons, and Lin Feng was giving one to Lang Yan that. Lang Yan was astonished too. He was speechless and dumbstruck. A saint's weapon? He didn't. His teacher's fellow disciple was offering him a saint's weapon? What are you looking at? Take it, said Mu Chun, smiling at him. Lang Yan was stupefied, and he took the armor numbly. Thank you very much, teacher. Brother Wuxia is very busy traveling. He doesn't have time to teach you. I'll also offer you some skills, techniques, and spells, continued Lin Feng. Lang Yan's heart twitched. Lin Feng had just offered him a saint's weapon, so what kind of techniques would he give him? Some of the disciples of the celestial martial dynasty were members of Tiantai in the past. At that moment, their hearts were pounding in astonishment. They had the impression they had made a mistake. They had missed something great. Disciples who respect Tiantai, who never betrayed Tiantai, have a very important position in my heart. No matter how strong they are, no matter how talented, they will all be rewarded, said Lin Feng calmly. The members of Tiantai all looked happy and clenched their fists in joy. They felt even more determined for remaining loyal. Lin Feng was back and finally, Tiantai was going to change again. Lin Feng could talk to a saint as an equal. Everything changed. He even dared say he could destroy the celestial martial dynasty. To Lin Feng, a saint's weapon wasn't much anymore. However, he hoped that Tiantai would become extremely powerful. He had great affection for the other direct disciples of Tiantai, as well. He hoped Tiantai would have no more problems in the future. He wanted to show everyone that Tiantai couldn't be offended, and he wanted to help all his friends rise. Brother Lin Feng, I'm a member of Tiantai too. Do you have a gift for me? Ling asked Lin Feng. Her eyes were twinkling. When we go back, you can choose something, Lin Feng agreed. Awesome, Ling grinned. All right, it's the great emperor's competition now, said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty indifferently. All the great emperors walked up to the stage. A young man appeared at the foot of the stage. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng, smiling broadly. Teacher, said Yi Chun with a smile. He looked very happy to see his teacher. Xiao Chun, dear best. But stay safe, don't risk your life, said Lin Feng smiled. He waved and some strength surrounded Yi Chun. Go now. I will do my best, Yi Chun nodded. He didn't feel relaxed at all. His teacher was there. He felt even more pressured. He wanted to finish among the best cultivators, otherwise, it would be a humiliation for his teacher. He was very nervous. Because you're here, Xiao Chun will be even more worried. He will be nervous because of the rankings, said Mu Chun to Lin Feng, understanding what was going on. He must listen to his heart, replied Lin Feng calmly. The fire shrine. A woman was standing in front of a stone stage. In front of her were a few saints. Since there were many problems in the continent, many groups had called their saints come back. Shrines had many saints, even if people seldom saw them. I've got news. Lin Feng is in dark clouds in the holy city. He's sly. Even if the fortune shrine supports him, he must die. I have some people watching him. We know where he usually goes. He won't be able to escape this time, said the woman calmly. All the saints understood why she made such great efforts to find Lin Feng. Because of Qiongyu. Lin Feng's real body is not weak, and could even be called strong. He's a low-level saint, but he's soon going to become a medium-level saint. I'm not sure you can easily kill him. All of you are heroes of the Qiong clan. This time, I need people who can go to the lower world to kill Lin Feng, said the woman, glancing at the saints. These people were all heroes of the fire shrine, and high-level saints. She couldn't give orders to people stronger than that even if her social position was very high. The Qiong clan was a powerful clan of the fire shrine, and they had many contacts. These saints were from her clan. I don't want the fire shrine to send people straightforwardly to kill Lin Feng, because we have to make sure Qiongyu is safe, said the woman. Other people from the fire shrine might kill Lin Feng straight off, without caring about Qiongyu. I'll go. Tian Ruojian, and the others aren't there this time. Killing Lin Feng should be easy, said Qiong Lin icily. He was the one who had captured Jitian the previous time. All right, I'll leave it to you then, said the woman, smiling at Qiong Lin. Thank you. Qiong Lin nodded. His task was to get Qiongyu back alive, safe and sound. Chapter 24:14. Bestial Saints help. Lin Feng was in the bleachers, watching the young people battle. He felt enthusiastic. It reminded him of his youth. Back in the days, he was also on battle stages quite often. Now things had changed, and he would never be on a battle stage to compare his strength with other people again. As expected, Xiaochen is having a hard time, but he's ready to risk his life, sighed Mu Qin. Little Lin Feng is back, so that little boy doesn't want to disgrace his teacher. That's why he's ready to take risks. I'm afraid he will deteriorate quickly, said Emperor Yu. As expected, just as he finished talking, Yichen was struck hard. He was injured, hurled away, and blood splashed. He crashed to the ground. You lost. Go now, said Yichen's opponent. He knew Yichen was from Tiantai, so he didn't dare act too arrogantly. He had seen Lin Feng a moment before. He wanted to give them face. I lost. Yichen pulled a long face and came over to Lin Feng. He lowered his head and said, Teacher, I'm sorry, I made you lose face. Come here, said Lin Feng, smiling. He didn't care about those things. Yichen walked over to Lin Feng. He didn't dare look at him. He felt ashamed. Little boy, how could I say anything about that? So many years have passed, and I haven't had time to teach you. I feel guilty, said Lin Feng. He released life qi, which surrounded Yichen and quickly healed him. Very quickly, Yichen felt rejuvenated. He raised his head and said, Teacher, don't say that. I'm the one who's useless. Don't feel bad. Come here, sit in front of me and watch the battles. Learn from them, said Lin Feng, smiled. Yichen understood that Lin Feng truly didn't mind, but that made him feel even more guilty. The battles continued. Lin Feng sensed something approaching. He raised his head, his eyes narrowing. Danger is approaching, he thought. He had practiced the Celestial Dao Destiny technique for a while already, and he could sense and predict things. It was a very strange sensation. It wasn't like when he had talked to the saint of the Celestial Dao Destiny technique. This time a terrifying danger lurked. If I sense danger, it means there's a high-level saint. Their original strength has already reached the maximum level, so I can't compete with them. I'll need to borrow the strength of the star world again, he thought. He considered several things. The shrines wanted him to die, especially the fire shrine. Lin Feng suddenly remembered the woman, Qionyu's mother. She had mentioned the holy city in the past, Qitian Holy Town, his friends. So was the Celestial Martial Dynasty a group which had been created by the woman to settle in the holy city? It was absolutely possible. A low-level saint had appeared in the holy city. For the lower world, that was very surprising. They had started watching everything in the city, very strange behavior. Ling, go back to your father, said Lin Feng. He was still holding her in his arms. He nodded and went back to Mu Chun. Teachers, I need to leave my body for a few minutes. Don't let anyone disturb me, Lin Feng told Mu Chun and Emperor Yu telepathically. They were both surprised, but nodded and replied, all right. Lin Feng closed his eyes, and after a few seconds, he appeared in the star world. Master Ox, he called out. He disappeared and reappeared in front of the old ox. What's going on? The old ox asked Lin Feng. Master Ox, I think some high-level saints are coming for me. I need some help, said Lin Feng. The ox said to Lin Feng, at your cultivation level, you cannot compete with high-level saints indeed. However, I told you, I can't help you in the outside world. You need to ask those beasts if they are willing to help you. One is enough. Try and convince one of them. One is enough. Lin Feng was astonished. The old ox sounded very confident. He knew the beasts were incredibly strong. Lin Feng had seen how strong the 9 low-level bestial saints were. They were just medium-level saints. The high-level bestial saints were even more terrifying. They were the gods' beasts, but they were proud too. Convincing them to help would be very complicated. I'll try, said Lin Feng. He disappeared and reappeared in front of an ocean of stars. The 9 high-level bestial saints were there. Everybody, shouted Lin Feng. The beasts ignored him. Their eyes were closed, as if he didn't exist. I know that you've been imprisoned in this world for a very long time, and that the god is not here. I know you don't want to submit to anyone, especially me, the new master of this world, and I'm very weak in comparison with you. I know all this, said Lin Feng calmly. Now I will give you an opportunity. If anyone agrees to help me, when I become a high-level saint, I'll give you the opportunity to challenge me. If you win, I'll release you and you'll be free. When Lin Feng said that, they suddenly opened their eyes and looked at Lin Feng. He sensed a terrifying bestial qi fill the air. Really? Asked one of the bestial saints. Lin Feng was proud. When I become a high-level saint, I'll give you the opportunity to challenge me. That was an opportunity. Wasn't he just trying to get them to react? Master Ox can tell you I am a man of my word, replied Lin Feng indifferently. Are you sure you want to do that? The old ox asked Lin Feng telepathically. Yes, Lin Feng nodded. He asked, Master Ox, which one is the weakest one of them? You made up your mind. Even if you choose the weakest one, it's indeed enough. But let me warn you, in the future, when you become a high-level saint, even the weakest one will easily be able to defeat you, if not kill you, said the old ox. I already made up my mind, said Lin Feng. The gigantic one, he's an ancient golden ape. You can choose him, said the old ox telepathically. Thank you very much, master, replied Lin Feng nodded. The 9 beasts said at the same time. I agree to help you this one time, and then I'll challenge you when you become a high-level saint. Thank you very much, everybody, Lin Feng smiled. He looked at the gigantic golden ape and said, Master, please help me this time. All right, only once, said the gigantic golden ape. He shrank down in size, only as tall as Lin Feng. His chi now looked ordinary. Take me out. Yes, Lin Feng agreed. In the outside world, Lin Feng opened his eyes. Mu Chun and Emperor Yu were startled when someone appeared behind Lin Feng. He looked composed, but also unfathomable and enigmatic. Little Lin Feng? Emperor Yu inquired warily. Teacher, continue watching the battles, Lin Feng smiled. The celestial emperors were fighting at that moment. It was almost the end of the ceremony. After them, the saint emperors would fight. Little Lin Feng, for the saint emperors' battles, most of the fighters will be patriarchs themselves, said Mu Qin. Who will fight for Tiantai? Asked Lin Feng. An old friend of yours, Mu Qin smiled. Lin Feng was surprised, an old friend of his. Chapter 24:15. Saint's arrival. Lin Feng had convinced the golden ape, a high-level bestial saint, to help him. He didn't feel he was in danger. Since he could solve the issue easily, he continued watching the battles. After that, the celestial martial dynasty sent forth a fighter. Lin Feng was startled. He knew that fighter. Back then, during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, there was a giant, Shi Yinfeng. He was now a member of the celestial martial dynasty. Shi Yinfeng was a saint emperor now. He was very strong, having reached the very top of the Shengdi layer. If the Holy City hadn't changed so much in the previous years, a Saint Emperor would have been considered a terrifying cultivator. The Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list hadn't taken place too long ago, and Shi Yunfeng had already become really strong. Back then, Lin Feng remembered everybody used to say that those who did well at the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list were going to become great cultivators. And it was true. All those people were very talented and continued rising. Shi Yunfeng, back then, during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, you weren't as strong as me, and now you will still be weaker than me, a voice proclaimed. A Buddhist monk walked forwards. It was Dozhan Seng, now a strong cultivator of the Canaan Buddhist clan. He was also a Saint Emperor at the top of the Shengdi layer. Back in the days, at the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list, he had ranked better than Shi Yunfeng. Lin Feng, it's a pity that you're not fighting today. I wonder how strong you are, and Chu Chunqiu, said Dozhan Seng, looking at the members of Tiantai. Those people were now so strong. Watching an old friend fight is a great opportunity too, Lin Feng smiled. At that moment someone shouted, Lin Feng, old buddy, you came back, and you didn't tell me. A strong cultivator arrived as a strong wind started blowing. He was topless. Lin Feng grinned. Tantai, couldn't you put on some clothes? Hehe, I like being topless, said Tantai. He looked straightforward and good-natured as usual. He landed on the battle stage. Now that Lin Feng is not participating, I'll finish first. We'll see if you're strong enough, said Dozhan Seng. Ancestor, how strong is the cultivator of Champion University? Lin Feng asked Ancestor Shi Tian. Those guys are extraordinarily talented. They're as strong as me. Some of them are even stronger than me. Champion University has some incredible geniuses. You killed Ji Chang, and now nobody can compete with those people. Ancestor Shi Tian sighed. Some incredible people came from Champion University. Some of them had died, or joined the Celestial Martial Dynasty, when the Holy City had become chaotic. All right, said Lin Feng, nodding. I owe Champion University, but some things must be changed in Champion University too. Ancestor Zhu Tian, you're very strong. Why don't you fight personally for the university? Ancestor Zhu Tian's face stiffened and he blushed. He hadn't thought Lin Feng would come back. Since Lin Feng had come back, he had remained silent, saying absolutely nothing. But Lin Feng had heard him before arriving. Some people were incredibly important in Lin Feng's life. His wives, his teachers, his fellow disciples. In the past, Ancestor Zhu Tian was relatively respectful, but now, he had humiliated Lin Feng's teachers, and was very impolite. Lin Feng couldn't accept that. He didn't want to do anything against Champion University. He owed them. But he had to do something about Ancestor Zhu Tian. Lin Feng, you're a student of Champion University. Why don't you fight for it? Said Ancestor Zhu Tian. He felt embarrassed, but he was an elder. Lin Feng wasn't being polite to him. Me? Lin Feng smiled. Ancestor Zhu Tian looked at Lin Feng and suddenly, he had the impression everything around him had become darkness and death. You said me, said a voice in his head. Ancestor Zhu Tian shouted quickly. No, let me off. Everything became normal again. Lin Feng was just looking at him, and smiling indifferently. Ancestor Zhu Tian was covered with cold sweat, his face as white as a sheet of paper. He looked like he had almost died. Everybody was staring at him. What's wrong, Ancestor? Asked Lin Feng. However, he sounded a bit cold. Ancestor Zhu Tian lowered his head. He didn't dare look at Lin Feng. How could Lin Feng be so strong? A saint. Lin Feng had to be a saint. Ancestor Zhu Tian's heart was pounding violently. A moment before, the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty had talked to him as equals. He had hoped that he was talking that way because he was a disciple of the Fortune Shrine. But now his hopes were ruined. Lin Feng was a saint. He was as strong as the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. How could he go onto the battle stage? Ancestor, you shouldn't bully people who are weaker than you, said Lin Feng indifferently. He didn't look at him anymore. The other ancestors also noticed it, but they all remained silent. Lin Feng was back. Saints talked to him as equals, and Ancestor Zhu Tian had infuriated him. The other ancestors decided to let nature take its course. After all, Lin Feng and Champion University's relations were deep. They didn't want that to change. They didn't want Lin Feng to hold a grudge against Champion University, either. The battles started. At that level, things were completely different. There was no group battle, only one-on-ones. It would have been too destructive otherwise. Sure, Yin Feng understands Stone Dao. His defense and attacks are terrifying. When he becomes a saint, it will probably become Earth original strength, murmured Lin Feng, watching Sure Yin Feng fight. When becoming a saint, a cultivator's strengths all had to turn into original strength. Stone Dao became Earth original strength. And to understand Earth original strength, a cultivator had to understand several sorts of Dao intent of the same type, such as stone, mud, heavy sand, etc. Dozhan Sung was also very strong. He was a Buddhist monk, and his attacks were terrifying. He was like Kong Ming, his defense and attacks were terrifying too. He's stronger than Sure Yin Feng, thought Lin Feng. He could see everything. Finally, it was Tantai's turn. Tantai's tribe controlled one type of strength, explosion strength. Their strength became more and more explosive with time. It was a special kind of strength. Tantai also understood Soundwave Dao now, and he had an advanced understanding of it. Time passed, and the battles continued. The sun gradually set. The evening sun illuminated the battle stage. The atmosphere was different. Tantai won against Sure Yin Feng, but he lost against Dozhan Sung. Dozhan Sung really reminded Lin Feng of Kong Ming. Finally, the battles ended. Dozhan Sung finished first, Tantai finished second, Sure Yin Feng finished third. Brilliant, said the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, standing up and applauding. He said, all right, the battles are over. The top 3 cultivators can join the Celestial Martial Dynasty and become my disciples if they wish. When the saint said that, many people were astonished. For the different leagues, most of the time there were members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, the Canaan Dynasty, and Tiantai in the top 3. Those people weren't really going to leave their groups, especially since Lin Feng had come. So Tiantai was now at the same level as the Celestial Martial Dynasty. Nobody is willing to become my disciple, said the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, looking at Lang Yen and Tantai. You too, you better become my disciples. The crowd was astonished. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was provoking Tiantai, even though Lin Feng was there. Lin Feng didn't find it strange, he found it very normal. Saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, you think you're good enough to be my teacher? Said Tantai icily. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was humiliating Tiantai. Good enough? The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty smiled. You're ignorant like a frog in a well. Don't you know that saints are also divided into different levels? Half saints, low-level saints, high-level saints, peerless saints. Before we came, there wasn't a single saint in the holy city. Becoming a saint is extremely difficult. And me, I'm a low-level saint. And you're saying I'm not good enough to become your teacher? The crowd was astonished. He was a low-level saint, which meant he was a level 2 saint. I'll give you an opportunity now. If you refuse, you'll fall with Tiantai if anything happens, said the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty indifferently. Everybody's heart started pounding. Was Tiantai going to be destroyed? Nonsense, said Lang Yin coldly. Nonsense. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty smiled icily. Some saints' strength filled the air, and the atmosphere became oppressive. Everybody had the impression they were suffocating. Then they saw a group of people in the sky. They were flying so high they looked like gods. Saints, they're all saints. The crowd was trembling in fear. Chapter 24:16. Killing to the inhabitants of the holy city. A group of saints was a terrifying and astonishing thing to see. Their hearts were racing. Lin Feng, proclaimed a voice which sounded like thunder, and made people's bodies shake even more. Lin Feng, they're here for Lin Feng. It proves that the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty knew that. The people trembled even more. This group of saints didn't come in peace. Lin Feng, get ready to escape, said Mu Chun and Emperor Yu. They were both grimacing. Even though they didn't know how strong these people were, they could sense how terrifying they were, and they wanted to kill Lin Feng. At that moment, Lin Feng raised his head. he looking completely unperturbed. He looked at the leader of the group, Qiong Lin from the Fire Shrine. Back then, he had captured Jitian and imprisoned him. 1 high-level saint, 3 low-level saints, 5 half-saints. They really overestimated me, he thought. If the Fire Shrine had managed to get a high-level saint to come for Lin Feng, it meant they took the issue extremely seriously. It was dark clouds. So even if Lin Feng contacted the Fortune Shrine or Tianruojian, they wouldn't be able to arrive within a short time. The Fire Shrine couldn't know that Lin Feng had obtained something great in the godly grave though. He now possessed the star-studded sky world, and the star god had transmitted his knowledge to him. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the saint of the celestial martial dynasty, asking, "You're a member of the Fire Shrine?" "Lin Feng, I'm not from the Fire Shrine. They just hired me to watch Tiantai and gather information about you. Regarding the holy city, I'm happy here. The qi is good. You can't escape anymore, so my mission will soon be over," said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty calmly. People around were astonished. So that's how things were. The shrines wanted to kill Lin Feng, and the celestial martial dynasty was there to spy on him. Why did the shrines, who controlled the world, want to kill Lin Feng? What had he done to them? The crowd looked at the group of saints in the sky in awe and veneration. Not only were those people saints, but they were also members of shrines. "If you release Qiongyu, apart from you, we will not bear recriminations against other people," Qiong Lin stated loudly. He looked imposing and awe-inspiring. Lin Feng smiled coolly. "I see, so the shrine wants to attack ordinary people again." "It all depends on you," said Qiong Lin coldly. "Is that so?" said Lin Feng. He had a knowing smile on the corner of his mouth. He waved and said, "Teachers, move away." Little Lin Feng, Mu Chun, Emperor Yu, and the others looked extremely worried. Lin Feng wanted to fight against a shrine. How could he? "Move away. I can solve the issue," said Lin Feng calmly. Mu Chun and the others were astonished, but they nodded and moved away. Lin Feng said, "As long as I'm not dead, if you touch any of my friends, I'll kill Qiongyu atrociously. Since you want to die so much, I will help you." The saints were in line. The crowd was terrified. One glance, and those people could kill all of them instantly. "Let's see how you intend to kill me," Lin Feng said to Qiong Lin. Qiong Lin flashed forwards. He was a high-level saint, and fighting against Lin Feng was easy. The reason why he had brought the others was just to be sure, in case something unexpected happened. A beam of light streaked across the sky. It looked like a shooting star. The sky started burning instantly. The ground under Lin Feng's feet started crackling, turning into an ocean of magma and flames. And his enemy hadn't even arrived yet. Something shattered with a sharp and clear note. The person who was standing behind Lin Feng, without saying anything, finally moved. He grew to a gigantic size, and turned into a golden beam of light. He roared furiously. His voice turned into a powerful soundwave strength, which blew away any incoming energies. The flames exploded and disappeared. The crowd saw a gigantic golden ape behind Lin Feng, dozens of zhang tall. The air thrummed with the presence of a supreme beast. The atmosphere crackled when he breathed. Qiong Lin was extremely fast. He had landed in front of Lin Feng in the blink of an eye. But at that moment he started shaking. A gigantic hand swept towards him. The 5 fingers looked like mountains. The crowd was astonished. That cultivator was there to protect Lin Feng, and was horrifyingly strong. All the bleachers and the fighting stage all exploded. Buildings hundreds of li away blew apart. Many strong cultivators exploded instantly too. Their souls exploded, unable to stand the pressure. When saints fought, it was an apocalypse for normal people. A terrifying metallic sound spread in the air. Qiong Lin was smashed backwards. The gigantic golden hand continued moving towards him. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" shouted Qiong Lin desperately. He was afraid. A terrifying heavy strength oppressed him. Nobody answered. The gigantic hand continued moving towards him. He felt powerless. How strong? Thought the crowd on the ground. How could that ape be so strong? Qiong Lin was already incredibly strong, but that ape could force him back in the blink of an eye. How incredible! And even though Qiong Lin retreating desperately, the gigantic hand continued closing on him. Qianglin released as much fire strength as he could. He was now bathing in flames. His fire original strength turned the atmosphere around him into an explosive ocean of flames. "Break!" shouted Qianglin, releasing a sun to collide with the gigantic hand. An incredible explosion covered the sky, and the gigantic golden ape's hand grabbed Qianglin. "What should I do with him?" the gigantic golden ape asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng's heart was pounding. No wonder the old ox was so confident. Those beasts were much, much stronger than he had imagined. The golden ape controlled several sorts of original strength, all at the maximum level. He was a terrifying high-level bestial saint. "Kill," Lin Feng said firmly. The ape crushed Qianglin in his hand, crackling sounds spread out. He drew his hand back and looked at the arm sticking out of his closed hand. The ape growled ferociously. "No!" Qianglin shouted desperately. He was devastated. He released strength while shouting, but gradually, his voice grew more and more faint. When the ape opened his hand, only a few threads of fire chi were left. Qianglin had disappeared. Phew! The crowd was astonished and took a deep breath. That was a truly terrifying saint. He could kill a saint without moving. He could shout and kill gigantic groups of people. The strong cultivators of the fire shrine were astonished. Lin Feng had a protector who was a peerless saint. Qianglin was a high-level saint, and had been killed in the blink of an eye. The members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, Tiantai, and Champion University were astonished too. At that moment, the gigantic figure shrank down again. The ape was now a mere 3 meters high, standing calmly behind Lin Feng. The crowd was just flabbergasted. Lin Feng was back, and saints could be killed. Behind him was a terrifying bestial saint. Lin Feng had just told him to kill, and his protector had killed that saint from a shrine. Chapter 24:17. Saint Lin Feng. The atmosphere became eerily silent. Everybody had suddenly forgotten about the grand ceremony. The members of the fire shrine were staring at the gigantic ape behind Lin Feng, trembling now. They knew how strong Lin Feng was, unrivaled in his cultivation. They also knew how strong any high-level saint was, especially high-level saints from shrines, and they were from the fire shrine. A high-level saint had at least one kind of original strength, at the maximum level, and Qianglin had been killed in one strike. One strike, and Qianglin had died. "Piss off now. Tell that woman that we'll settle accounts. Don't cause trouble to anyone else, or she will receive Qiangyu's corpse," said Lin Feng icily. The members of the fire shrine all grimaced. Lin Feng was telling them to piss off, and was threatening them. The woman had sent such a big army, convinced they would manage to kill Lin Feng. However, nobody had thought such a thing would happen. Qianglin, a high-level saint, had been killed because a terrifying cultivator protected Lin Feng. Could they kill Lin Feng now? They could already consider themselves lucky for not dying here. "Let's go," said one of them. They quickly turned around and left. They had come looking dignified and majestic. They left in abject fear. Many people were astonished. Saints had come looking dignified and majestic. Many people had looked at them as if they were gods. And their strongest cultivator had promptly been killed. And now Lin Feng had told them to piss off. Everybody turned and looked at Lin Feng. What had Lin Feng gone through in the previous decades? How had he changed so much? The crowd couldn't believe it. And who was that terrifying cultivator protecting him? "Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint," said Lin Feng at that moment. He smiled icily. The Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint's face froze unnaturally. "Brother Lin, you're extraordinary as expected," said the saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, smiling awkwardly. He didn't look as majestic as before. The golden ape behind Lin Feng could kill him effortlessly. "Your Excellency, I vividly remember what you just said," smiled Lin Feng. The Celestial Martial Dynasty's saint's mouth twitched. He didn't know what to say. He was furious at the fire shrine. They hadn't been able to deal with Lin Feng. Of course, they hadn't known Lin Feng would be backed up by such a terrifying cultivator. "Lin Feng, I'll tell you directly. If that bestial saint wants to kill me, I naturally can't do anything against him. That'd be my destiny. Anyway, that being the case, the Celestial Martial Dynasty is in the Holy City, and it won't change anything." The saint of the celestial martial dynasty remained calm and continued. Anyway, if that terrifying bestial saint kills me, what can I do? You think too highly of yourself, said Lin Feng, smiling icily. He said calmly, since you say that, I'll give you an opportunity. It's the grand ceremony today. The younger disciples are all done fighting. You and me, let's fight. The saint of the celestial martial dynasty was stunned. Lin Feng wanted to fight against him? He didn't know much about Lin Feng. He only knew he was very talented, and that the shrines wanted to kill him. But in any case, the saint of the celestial martial dynasty had been a saint for thousands of years. Even if he couldn't defeat Lin Feng, he was convinced Lin Feng wouldn't be able to kill him. Only that golden ape posed a threat to him. Really? Asked the saint of the celestial martial dynasty. Naturally, said Lin Feng, flashing forwards. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng wanted to challenge the saint. He was a low-level saint. Lin Feng had disappeared for decades. He couldn't be a low-level saint. He was definitely a half-saint, right? Everybody was curious. They thought that Lin Feng dared act like that because he was a member of the Fortune Shrine, and the Fortune Shrine protected him. They didn't think that Lin Feng had become a saint in just a few decades. But Lin Feng was challenging the saint of the celestial martial dynasty. All right, said the saint, slowly walking forwards. It felt like the earth and the sky were on the verge of freezing. Let's see how strong a genius of the Fortune Shrine is, said the saint of the celestial martial dynasty, staring at Lin Feng. He sounded cold and detached. He flashed forwards as everything froze around him. A layer of ice appeared around Lin Feng's body, and he felt his soul start to freeze. Ice strength was trying to prevent him from releasing his own strength. The celestial martial dynasty's saint turned into a beam of light. His robe was covered by a layer of ice, glittering in the light. He threw himself at Lin Feng. Die! A gigantic ice cauldron moved towards Lin Feng. The ice on the cauldron turned into threads of original ice strength. Each thread seemed like it could freeze a cultivator's soul. Slow. Lin Feng released slow strength, and the threads of ice chi slowed down. Lin Feng could see them more distinctly. He could also see the saint's movements more clearly. Lin Feng moved too, raising his finger and releasing absorbing strength. A dragon which absorbed everything in his way moved towards the cauldron. The two sorts of original strengths collided and shattered. Lin Feng was staring at his opponent. He looked enigmatic and unfathomable. Throne! Shouted the celestial martial dynasty's saint loftily. An ice throne appeared and rotated around him. It contained King Qi. Go in, said Lin Feng. The celestial martial dynasty's saint sensed the world around him turn into an illusion. Everything around him turned into darkness. Celestial life peeling, said Lin Feng coldly. The celestial martial dynasty's saint was horrified as he sensed his life being peeled off. How is this possible? My King Dao Qi. The saint was astonished. He had a king-type body. He had a king life. His qi was more powerful. He was extremely strong and talented. And yet, Lin Feng was peeling off his King Dao. As expected, the celestial Dao destiny technique is terrifying. Not only do I sense what might happen in the future, but I can also use it to kill people by destroying their destiny, thought Lin Feng. It was one of the last things he had studied, but it was also one of the things he had studied for the longest time, decades. He only understood the basics so far. I'm done playing with you, said Lin Feng indifferently. He pointed at the celestial martial dynasty's saint and moved in a blur of motion. He condensed fast strength in his hand and accelerated, moving so fast it was impossible to follow him with the eye. And the celestial martial dynasty's saint was still affected by the slow strength. Playing with me? The celestial martial dynasty's saint pulled a long face. He had been a low-level saint for so many years, and Lin Feng said he was playing with him? 1,000,000 death stamps turned into hell and surrounded him. The celestial martial dynasty's saint shouted furiously. His throne of ice was behind him. He looked like an ice king. A terrifying sword chi moved towards him. It was Lin Feng's ruler's sword. The throne exploded, and the ice as well. Piss off! Shouted the celestial martial dynasty's saint. He raised his hand and released ice original strength. He wanted to freeze Lin Feng. Absorb! Lin Feng's fist collided with his hand, turned into a vortex, and absorbed his king qi. The celestial martial dynasty's saint's face turned deathly pale as he stared at Lin Feng. He hadn't thought he would feel so weak against Lin Feng. "And you dared act arrogantly in front of me," said Lin Feng icily. He looked at the celestial martial dynasty's saint disdainfully. These days, Lin Feng released attacks with all his body parts, his eyes, his hands. It was difficult to defend against him. Lin Feng controlled so many sorts of original strength. He could attack without really probing. Attacking was natural for him. The celestial martial dynasty's saint was being attacked from all sides. And his qi was being absorbed. He was being absorbed in Lin Feng's vortex. And then he disappeared into it entirely. How is that possible? The members of the celestial martial dynasty were astonished and terrified. A saint had just been absorbed. Lin Feng rolled up his sleeves and slowly walked back to the members of Tiantai. He looked like a peerless and aggressive cultivator. The crowd realized that Lin Feng wasn't a gentle young man anymore. He had become almost peerless. He had become a real king. Lin Feng looked like a real king. He was Saint Lin Feng. Chapter 24:18. I won't see anyone. The crowd was even more astonished than when the gigantic golden ape had killed Qiong Lin, a high-level saint. Lin Feng had disappeared dozens of years. When he had left, he was still a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer. He had dazzled during the Pathfinder Day of the Imperial ranking list. Then he had finished first at the meeting of the Continent of the Nine Clouds. He had come back and destroyed some ancient holy clans. But the crowd mainly remembered Lin Feng as a cultivator of the Huang Qi layer, and later as a great emperor. A few decades was nothing to become a saint. Saints were legendary cultivators, and especially a level 2 saint. The inhabitants of the holy city didn't even dare imagine that. But Lin Feng had done it. Lin Feng had just killed a low-level saint in front of them. Not to mention a saint who was at the top of a powerful group in the holy city, the Celestial Martial Dynasty. The saint of the Celestial Martial Dynasty was dead, so the Celestial Martial Dynasty would probably collapse at some point. The crowd looked at Lin Feng and at the members of Tiantai. Tiantai was going to continue rising. When a man attains the Tao, even his pets ascend to heaven. Lin Feng had attained enlightenment, so Tiantai rode on his success too. The golden ape was surprised. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng was so strong. This guy had managed to become the new leader of the Star World. He didn't have an undeserved reputation. Mu Chen, Emperor Yu, and the others were stunned, gaping at Lin Feng. They had never thought Lin Feng would be so talented. He had changed so quickly. Little Lin Feng, I'm really surprised, said Mu Chen, taking a deep breath. Indeed, I still remember everything we went through. The Qi Tian Peak, the meeting of the emperors. Back then he made a great show of your talents. And then we came to the great world, and continued being oppressed. However, little Lin Feng continued rising. He became stronger and stronger. Back then, I still didn't think he'd become a saint so quickly. I hadn't thought a saint would appear in Tiantai, to be honest. Emperor Yu was astonished. His disciple was a saint. It was like a dream. I want to be like my teacher, said Yi Chen, clenching his fists. He felt so weak. Uncle Lin Feng is so strong. Lang Yin was astonished and pleasantly surprised. Tiantai was so lucky. The crowd forgot all about the Celestial Martial Dynasty and their grand ceremony. I never thought Lin Feng would already be so strong, sighed Do Zhanseng. He was proud and talented, but he felt like an insect in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng turned around and looked at the members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty. He said calmly, I don't care about the Celestial Martial Dynasty. However, I will destroy all those who betrayed Tiantai. All the members of the Celestial Martial Dynasty shook. They felt ridiculous, insignificant, and ashamed. Teachers, let's go back, said Lin Feng, smiling at Emperor Yu and Mu Chen. Go back to Tiantai, said Emperor Yu, smiling. Unfortunately, your fellow disciples are not here, otherwise, we would have a big party. Yes, we'll have other opportunities though. We must do something together. Lin Feng smiled. He looked at Ancestor Shirtian. Ancestor, come to Tiantai with us. All right, said Ancestor Shirtian, smiling and nodding along. Lin Feng's social status was different now. He had become a king. He could now be more informal with the ancestors. In the cultivation world, strength set the base for politeness and respect, not age. Of course, Lin Feng was usually polite, but he didn't feel awkward or embarrassed either. Some people were embarrassed and felt awkward at that moment, though, such as ancestor Zhu Tian. The atmosphere in Tiantai was great and lively. Mu Chen, Emperor Yu Lin Feng Tantai, Yin Qingyan, Qinwu, Yi Chen Langyan, and many others were all together at the heart of Tiantai. Ancestor Xian Tian, Ancestor Shi Tian, and the others didn't have assigned seats, so they sat wherever they wanted. Everybody was chatting happily. Lin Feng, how did you practice cultivation and become a saint? Asked Yin Qingyan. Her eyes were twinkling. She was curious. Just like that, said Lin Feng, shrugging and laughing. Tell us about saints then. We've never met saints before. We've never properly chatted with one. We don't even know what kind of strength saints control, said Yin Qingyan. Yes, Lin Feng, please tell us about saints. We've been saint emperors for so long, and we're not able to transcend worldliness and attain holiness. Maybe the only person of Champion University who became a saint was the founder. He didn't write anything about it though, said Ancestor Shi Tian. He was curious too. All right, Lin Feng agreed. You all know what it's like to be a great emperor. However, to become a saint, you must understand what celestial Tao is. That kind of strength can't be studied formally. You must transcend worldliness to understand. When you understand it, you have the impression you have returned to your true self. You are one with nature, and your body becomes nature. Then, when you fuse strength together with celestial Tao, it creates a saint's technique. That way, you create your own saint's techniques. That's when you become a proper half-saint, and when you transcend worldliness and attain holiness. When you're a half-saint and want to become a low-level saint, you need to understand one sort of original strength: gold, wood, water, fire, earth, death, sound wave, and so forth. Anything is possible. Cosmic energy and Tao are original strengths, and celestial Tao is a more advanced version of those. You understand when you have an advanced comprehension and knowledge of energies. Heavy strength and oppressive strength and earth strength all belong to the same category, earth original strength. Ice strength, frost strength, and rain strength all belong to the same category as well, water original strength. When you understand one type, you can carry out terrifying attacks. You can fuse original strength together with celestial Tao. When you manage to do that, you become a low-level saint. The saint of the celestial martial dynasty understood a water-type original strength, ice and frost strength. He fused it together with celestial Tao, and that's how he created the ice throne. He could have easily killed a half-saint, but it was far from enough for him to become a high-level saint. For that, your original strength must reach the maximum level. For example, you'd need to understand every earth-type strength to make your earth original strength reach the maximum level. Heavy strength, oppressive strength, earth defense strength, and so on. Then when you understand properly, your original strength reaches the maximum level. I haven't been able to do it yet. Regarding peerless saints, it's even more complicated. Many high-level saints understand many types of original strengths at the maximum level and don't become peerless saints like the golden ape. To become a peerless saint, you must fuse special kinds of original strength together. Everybody was carefully listening to Lin Feng. It was fascinating. He was telling them about legendary saints. Making one type of original strength reach its maximum level sounded like something extremely difficult. Saints were not from the same world as them anymore. Teacher, when you made me dream and practice cultivation, was that intent original strength? Asked Lang Yan. Indeed, Lin Feng confirmed. No wonder. I could sense that my Tao had broken through. But I also knew that kind of strength in the dream was unreachable for me at the moment. I need to practice cultivation more. I hope I'll become as strong as you someday, teacher. You will have opportunities, Lin Feng smiled. He looked at Mu Chun and Emperor Yu. Teachers, Tiantai went through a lot this time. Please select some of Tiantai's disciples, people who are motivated, talented, loyal to Tiantai, and even if they're not very talented, some who are very determined, wise, and kind. I want to give them a lecture. I want to help them. Mu Chen was surprised but nodded approvingly. All right, it'll definitely help them. Can we also attend your lecture? You're flattering me, teacher, said Lin Feng, smiling wryly. He definitely wanted to help his two teachers, but not by giving them a lecture. Even though his teachers were willing to attend, Lin Feng couldn't accept. He had the impression it was disrespectful. Lin Feng, we also want to attend your class, Ancestor Shi Tian said to Lin Feng. No problem, ancestors, Lin Feng agreed. Lin Feng, Zhu Tian wants to come and apologize, said Ancestor Shi Tian. He did it once already, but he's petty and miserable. I am a student of Champion University, but I can't tolerate seeing petty people at the top of the hierarchy in Champion University, replied Lin Feng calmly. The ancestors were surprised but not much. They nodded. We understand. I want to report something, said someone at that moment. That person was standing at the gate. Speak, replied Mu Chen. The new leader of the Celestial Martial Dynasty, as well as some founding members, are here with some people who betrayed Tiantai. They're here to apologize, said that person. The crowd understood how the Celestial Martial Dynasty felt. They were afraid of Lin Feng. They even came to apologize. They all looked at Lin Feng, and Lin Feng said, I'm not seeing them. Just tell them 3 words. Conduct yourselves well. Yes, replied the disciple. The crowd shuddered. Those who had betrayed Tiantai were probably going to go through hardships. Also, I heard that the Canaan dynasty's saint wanted to come to pay you a visit, said the disciple. The crowd shook again. A saint wanted to come to pay them a visit? Tell them that I won't receive guests for 7 days. They can come in 7 days and after, said Lin Feng. The disciple bowed and left. People were astonished. A saint wanted to come and pay Lin Feng a visit, and Lin Feng just said he wouldn't see anyone for 7 days. How incredible! The ancestors of Champion University were astonished too. If they hadn't met Lin Feng when he was much weaker, they would have never met him. Chapter 24:19. Lecture in the central part of Tiantai was a field. Many disciples gathered there, they standing in 2 gigantic lines. Between them were praying mats. They all looked at a young man with admiration. He was wearing white clothes, he looked clean, calm, and composed. However, everybody knew that that young man could kill low-level saints easily. He had destroyed some shrines members too. He had also refused to see a saint because he was busy. He was a living legend. Now he was going to teach them some concepts. How incredible! One could well imagine how happy the crowd was. I've heard that Brother Lang Yen received some knowledge from him. That's how he defeated Shi Xian. He progressed a lot after receiving teacher Lin Feng's transmissions. In a few seconds, he can probably make you progress more than you would in 10 years by practicing really hard, thought someone. Such opportunities were extremely rare. Sit down, said Lin Feng, smiling patiently. He didn't sound stuffy at all, rather amiable and casual, but the disciples were nervous. They all sat down on the praying mats and looked at Lin Feng. You all have different cultivation levels. You all practice different types of cultivation. I can't make a uniform lecture for you. However, I want to say a few things. When I started practicing cultivation, my cultivation level was much lower than yours. I started at the Qi layer. Back in the days, I admired cultivators. For me, cultivators of the Xian Qi layer and the Tian Qi layer were extraordinary cultivators. Such levels were out of reach for me. If I hadn't thought that way, I don't think I would have progressed at all. I would have never become a Tian level cultivator. But now I'm a saint. What is the Tian Qi layer to me? Lin Feng began calmly. People were shaking. Indeed, they couldn't forget that Lin Feng used to be extremely weak back in the days. He had admired other people too. Now he was much powerful than the people of the Tian Qi layer, whom he had admired once. Don't think that you can't surpass me even if you are slow-witted. Never give up. Grand talents mature slowly. Many people are slow-witted, but they still have good aptitudes. They practice slowly, but they can also become very strong. Talent is helpful until a certain point, that's all. Talent cannot determine which cultivation level you'll reach in your life. What does is your heart? Said Lin Feng. Many people felt extremely determined. Your heart, that's your intent. Your intent makes you unbreakable. You can bend but not break. But you also need to be realistic. Cultivation is something you do step by step. You must be determined to become better each day. Someday you'll reach the end. Phew. People were extremely excited. They all breathed quickly. Their hearts were pounding. Reach the end? All right. I just wanted to tell you those things. If you have any question, you can ask me, smiled Lin Feng. Don't feel ill at ease. Ask me anything. Teacher, said a bald young man standing up quickly. Everybody looked at him. He looked nervous and kept scratching his head. Teacher, I'm so nervous, sorry. I am now a high-level emperor. I understand Earth cosmic energy. However, I can't understand Tao. How do I understand Tao, and how do I know which Tao is mine? Most people understood Tao when they were great emperors, but some talented and outstanding young people understood Tao when they were still emperors, like Lin Feng, Chu Chunqiu, and Ji Chong had back in the days. Come here and use your best strength to attack me. Let me sense your cosmic energies, said Lin Feng to that young man. He was surprised and nodded. Teacher, I don't want to be disrespectful. He bowed before Lin Feng and attacked him. A powerful heavy strength moved towards Lin Feng. The bald young man's fist became as heavy as a mountain. His strength was oppressive like an avalanche. Of course, it couldn't do anything to Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood up, and the bald young man sensed an oppressive strength surround him. It was painful. His strength is 1,000,000,000 times more powerful than mine. It's also a type of cosmic energy, thought the bald young man. Lin Feng moved towards him, surrounding him with the force of a landslide and the power of a tidal wave. It was as if the earth had oppressed him. Tao is an accumulation. To understand Tao, you must accumulate enough strength. You can't just study and learn Tao like this. I first understood life and death Tao. I remember, when I understood Tao, I was on the battlefield of the celestial country. I killed many strong cultivators before understanding Tao. There were mountains of corpses around me. Other people can only give you pieces of advice regarding Tao, but they can't help you find your Tao. Everybody listened to Lin Feng. As Lin Feng walked towards the young man, the strength became too oppressive, and he fell down on his butt. When the strength disappeared, he closed his eyes and visualized the strength Lin Feng had just used, the pure earth intent he had released. You're worth teaching, smiled Lin Feng. He walked back to his original seat. He had helped the bald young man sense the strength he studied. So now he had to study it on his own. Lin Feng couldn't study for him. Teacher Lin Feng is teaching us personally. We have to seize this opportunity. It's extremely rare, realized many disciples. Teacher, I'm a low-level emperor, and I've been stuck at this level for a very long time. I can't break through. What to do? Asked someone standing up. How long haven't you gone traveling? Asked Lin Feng. 2 years. During those 2 years, you only practiced and meditated alone, and you haven't broken through? Asked Lin Feng. Indeed, I can't break through. I can sense my cosmic energies are powerful enough though. Come here, said Lin Feng casually. That student walked towards Lin Feng. Suddenly, Lin Feng moved like the wind. A terrifying strength surrounded that cultivator and corroded his intent. He had the impression he was going to die. He didn't have time to react, but it was an opportunity too. If he were slightly stronger, he would be able to dodge. No, shouted that student furiously. Then he moved with the wind, changing his position and releasing humming sword lights all around himself. But he still felt danger closing on him. Another wave of chi rolled towards him. It descended from the sky and moved towards his shoulders as fast as lightning. Wind. That cultivator released wind strength and moved as fast as he could. But as soon as he dodged, more strength moved towards him. It didn't stop, strength kept attacking him. At the same time, he looked at Lin Feng, who was already seated on a praying mat. That's... The crowd was astonished. That disciple was fighting against nothing in a frenzy. He looked crazy. He has the impression he's going to die. It's definitely an illusion. The goal is to unleash his full potential, as if he were about to die. The teacher is oppressing him, he has to dodge. If he doesn't, he will die. The crowd understood. The teacher wanted to see how long he would persevere. At that moment, the air hummed, and a stronger chi rolled out. The crowd frowned. I broke through. The illusion disappeared, and the disciple stopped awkwardly. His cosmic energies hummed around him. He was astonished as he understood what was happening to him. He bowed before Lin Feng and said, "Thank you very much, teacher." "You understand now?" asked Lin Feng. "I understand. You oppressed me, but it wasn't real. It just made me think I was going to die. I had only two options: surpass myself and break through, or die." "Indeed. Die or break through. But to achieve that, you must have reached a certain level too. Your cosmic energies had to be at the top already. This time, you only needed a little bit of pressure. To achieve that, you need to go out and travel. That's why cultivators travel all the time. You need to fight against enemies to become stronger. Risking your life is often part of the game. That's how you unleash your full potential, when your enemies oppress you." Everybody listened carefully. Lin Feng taught new things to everyone. That lecture lasts for 3 days. However, for them, it felt as if they had saved 30 years. Everybody was in awe of Lin Feng. It was incredible to spend time with a legendary cultivator. They would always respect him. They would never betray Tiantai. They owed Tiantai for this chance. Chapter 2420, Flying to the Top. After the lecture, Lin Feng gave his teachers many spells, skills, techniques, and weapons. He only gave them great ones. He even gave them some saint's weapons he had obtained after killing people. "Little Lin Feng, those things are good because you're in Tiantai. But if you're not here, people will annihilate us for those items. Like when you gave Lang Yin a saint's weapon in front of everybody. That was scary. Do you really think it's a good thing for Lang Yin to have a saint's weapon?" asked Mu Chun, easily seeing the problem. "Teacher, I understand what you mean. I also thought about that. That's why I gave Lang Yin a protective saint's weapon. He can't use it to attack. He can only use to protect himself. Most cultivators can't do anything to him. When I'm traveling, I will leave 9 low-level bestial saints here to protect Tiantai. They will become Tiantai's protectors. I'm sure they'll be able to protect Tiantai for thousands of years, no matter what happens. High-level saints are unlikely to come to the lower world. 9 bestial saints as protectors. Mu Chun and Emperor Yu were astonished. Alright, indeed. Nobody can do anything to Tiantai with such cultivators, unless shrines come personally. The fire shrine is the shrine with which I have the most problems. I kidnapped a descendant of the fire shrine. That's why they don't dare try anything too risky. They will probably not try anything for the time being. In the future, if my relations with the fire shrine worsen, I will take care of Tiantai." "Alright, sounds like a plan," said Mu Chun, smiling and nodding. "In less than 100 years, Tiantai will become one of the strongest groups, I think." "Teacher, do you have any news from my fellow disciples?" asked Lin Feng. Mu Chun and Emperor Yu remained silent. Lin Feng looked at their expressions and asked, "What is going on? And what are you hiding from me, teachers? Tell me." "Little Lin Feng, Tianqi is Mu Chun sighed. Lin Feng's face stiffened. "What's wrong with him?" "There's a Buddhist mountain in the holy city. The legend says you need to climb up 99,999 steps to achieve enlightenment as a Buddhist cultivator. You've heard of that legend, right?" "Indeed," Lin Feng nodded. The first time he had arrived in the holy city, Huang Fu Long and Tantai had told him about it. It was said that those who had needed the least time to get to the top had done it in 3 years. It was impossible to do it by flying. The cultivators who tried died. There was also another legend which said that there was a peerless Buddha at the top, but that many people who managed to get to the top became peerless demons. Tianqi had tried to climb up that mountain many times. He had also failed repeatedly. Tianqi managed to get to the top. He didn't become a Buddha, he became a demon. He came back once, kowtowed 3 times, banging his head on the ground. Then he said he had nothing to do with his teachers and fellow disciples anymore, said Mu Chun. It was horrible for him to think about. Tianqi was one of his direct disciples, like a son to him. Tianqi used to be gentle and soft, and now he had become a demon, so he had decided to break off all ties. When did that happen? Lin Feng asked grimly. Just before the Canaan dynasty started rising. It is said that the rising of the Canaan dynasty has something to do with the Buddhist mountain, said Mu Chun. Where is Tianqi? Asked Lin Feng. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from him since he left. Lin Feng frowned. He gazed into the distance and suddenly shouted, Canaan Dynasty's leader, hurry up and come to Tiantai to see me. Everybody in the holy city heard his voice. The ground trembled at his words. Canaan Dynasty's leader, hurry up and come to Tiantai to see me. His voice echoed for a long time. Many people raised their heads and shuddered in fear. That was probably Lin Feng's voice. He was the only one who could shout so loudly, and especially make the leader of the Canaan dynasty come to Tiantai. Many people sighed. At that cultivation level, people seemed to belong to another world. Nothing could stop them. As expected, after a short time, a group of people from the Canaan dynasty arrived and stopped outside of Tiantai. They didn't land. Someone directly said icily, "What is the Canaan dynasty's relationship with the Buddhist mountain?" Those people looked at Lin Feng in surprise. The leader of the group was the saint. He was startled too. He had watched Lin Feng had directly kill the celestial martial dynasty's saint during the grand ceremony. So he didn't want to offend him. At the beginning, the Canaan dynasty was the Canaan Buddhist clan. Then a disciple climbed up the mountain and obtained a sutra. Then he practiced really hard, and that's what happened, someone said to Lin Feng. "You want to die?" shouted Lin Feng icily. A strong wind blew past and beheaded that person. Blood splashed, and he died instantly. The others' faces turned deathly pale. "If you continue lying, I'll kill you all," said Lin Feng icily. He said to the saint, "Speak." The saint tried to keep calm. He said to Lin Feng, "I'm the cultivator of the Buddhist mountain he meant. Then I came down. I went to the Canaan Buddhist clan, and I granted them many techniques. Then I changed their name." "You're a Buddhist monk, you're not a demon cultivator?" asked Lin Feng icily. He looked startled and said, "Buddhism is demon cultivation." "Go. Bring me to the Buddhist mountain," said Lin Feng coldly. The saint said, "You want to walk up the mountain?" "I want to fly straight to the top," replied Lin Feng. "You don't respect the big Buddha," said that person, smiling coldly. "If Buddhism is demon cultivation, Buddhists need respect. Besides, if I'm strong enough, what is Buddha in front of me?" said Lin Feng aggressively. The crowd was trembling around them. Buddhism was demon cultivation? If I'm strong enough, what is Buddha in front of me? Since it's that way, you and me will get to the top. He rose up in the air and flew away. Lin Feng glanced at the members of the Canaan dynasty icily and turned into a beam of light. According to legends, to achieve Buddhist enlightenment, it was necessary to climb up the stairs. People who flew and landed at the top died. However, Lin Feng considered himself strong enough to fly straight to the top. He could kill low-level saints easily. But what about the Peerless Buddha of the legends? Lin Feng didn't care about legends. In the holy city, many people's figures flickered. They flew towards the Buddhist mountain. Was Lin Feng going to land at the top of the mountain? The Buddhist mountain was surrounded by water. People usually arrived by boat. At that moment, two figures were flying high up in the sky. The leader of the Canaan dynasty stopped and said to Lin Feng, "I must stop here. If you can pass, I'll follow you. Let's see who's purposely making a mystery of a simple thing and terrifying the inhabitants of the holy city," said Lin Feng, rolling up his sleeves. He didn't believe in Buddha and demons, he just believed in strength. If a Buddha wasn't strong, who would believe in them? At the top of the mountain, there had to be a strong cultivator. Lin Feng didn't care about him. But this time his friend had a problem, so he had to help. His friend had even decided to break off ties with his friends and teachers. That was too strange. A powerful energy filled the air and surrounded Lin Feng. Lin Feng was not surprised. As expected, saint's strength. No wonder nobody could fly to the top. But now he had decided to break the rule. Lin Feng continued walking slowly. The atmosphere was oppressive. Then, Buddha lights rolled out and Lin Feng heard someone chant a mantra in a magnificent Brahma voice. A peerless golden Buddha appeared. He kept chanting endlessly. Many people raised their heads. As expected, there was a peerless Buddha protecting the mountain. Nobody had ever dared fly straight to the top, but Lin Feng dared. Chapter 24-21. Situation. Lin Feng raised his head and heard the Buddhist cultivator shout loudly. The atmosphere trembled. He had the impression his soul was going to explode. However, Lin Feng shouted out too, and the force of his voice dashed to the skies and collided with the Buddhist cultivator's loud shout. However, it was just the beginning. After that, a gigantic ancient golden Buddha descended from the sky and oppressed everything. His hand blotted out the sky and bore down on Lin Feng. It felt like the earth and the sky were on the verge of collapse. What a domineering attack. Oomph. Lin Feng grunted icily. He released sword strength, which streaked across the sky and destroyed the Buddhist hand imprint instantly. The Brahma voice's sound waves continued rolling out in waves. Suddenly, Lin Feng was alone in an empty space and could only hear the Brahma voice. 108 Sakyamanas appeared and chanted mantras unceasingly. They wanted him to give up everything and die happily. Lin Feng was disgusted by this kind of technique. Buddhist cultivators tried to kill people by making them give up. It was a horrible feeling. Lin Feng disappeared. The 108 Sakyamanas shot towards Lin Feng. He raised his hands. Slow, said Lin Feng. Everything around him slowed down. At the same time, he released a terrifying sword intent which contained God's strength. His manifesting speed was incredible. It was like he was merely releasing dazzling beam of lights. The ancient Buddhas exploded one after another. They turned into a golden ocean, which rolled in waves towards Lin Feng. The roar of the waves threatening to drown earth and sky. The mantra sound wave continued floating all around him. Could it be that there's no Peerless Buddha here? It seems like only the attacks of a Peerless Buddha are left. But an actual person, thought Lin Feng. He didn't see his opponent at all. The attacks had definitely been created by a very strong cultivator. Probably a high-level Buddha saint. Or the attacks he had left wouldn't have been so powerful. Sword lights kept flashing around Lin Feng. He jumped into the golden ocean and continued walking. Only Buddhist enlightenment could allow one to escape from the boundless sea of bitterness. But Lin Feng wasn't interested. His figure flickered. The sea of bitterness was boundless. There were dazzling golden lights everywhere, corroding away. People from the outside couldn't see the top of the Buddhist mountain at all. Lin Feng and the ancient Buddha disappeared together. Lin Feng traveled for days. He didn't turn around. He ended up in many illusions. But Lin Feng overcame every obstacle. Lin Feng was still walking slowly. Finally, the sea of bitterness disappeared. And he finally landed at the top of the mountain. This the Buddhist mountain? Lin Feng looked around. He was surprised. He smiled icily. This was a holy place for Buddhist cultivators. Bullshit. It was an evil and demonic place. On the top of the mountain were several buildings. Some people came out of a building, all of them Buddhist monks. However, Lin Feng smiled icily when he saw them. They were wearing Buddhist clothes, but their demon chi rolled in waves around them. I would have never thought that this place would be a sink of inequity, said Lin Feng calmly. Where is Tianqi? I wouldn't have thought someone would arrive by air. Unfortunately, you're not a Buddhist cultivator, sighed those people. Your Excellency, please go back. You shouldn't be here. Who should come here then? Asked Lin Feng. People who want to achieve Buddhist enlightenment, replied that person. Why do people who want to achieve Buddhist enlightenment turn into demons? Asked Lin Feng. They achieve supreme enlightenment. After they achieve supreme enlightenment, they don't become Buddhas, they become demons. How ridiculous. Where's Tianqi? Asked Lin Feng. He didn't have time to talk about this. There hasn't been any saint in the holy city for a very long time. But Buddhist monks who come to the Buddhist mountain become great demon Buddhas and become saints. Isn't that supreme enlightenment? Asked that person, ignoring Lin Feng. They were all strong, all low-level saints. If Lin Feng hadn't come personally, he would have never known there were such strong cultivators here. Buddha? Demon? Lin Feng looked furious. He took out his great demon halberd of desolation, and demon strength suddenly rolled in waves. He suddenly looked like a peerless demon. He said icily, "If you continue making me waste my time, I'll destroy the Buddhist mountain." Those people were stupefied. This strong cultivator was a demon cultivator. Tianqi is there, said that person, pointing at a building. Lin Feng's godly awareness rolled out. Crackling sounds spread in the air. He entered the building and saw a cultivator with long black hair seated cross-legged. The man suddenly opened his eyes and said, "Brother Lin Feng, what are you doing here?" Lin Feng put his great demon halberd of desolation away and walked forwards. The ground under his feet shattered. He destroyed the building, and the demon cultivator appeared alone in front of Lin Feng. It was Tianqi. He had completely changed. He looked like a demon now. Second fellow disciple. Lin Feng was seething. Back in the days, Tianqi used to smile all the time. Now he had completely changed. "You go back. I'm not your second fellow disciple anymore," said Tianqi indifferently. Lin Feng suddenly felt so sad to hear that. He was probably as sad as his teachers. "Why?" asked Lin Feng. "I don't care about worldly affairs anymore. I only care about strength. In only a few dozens of years, I became a saint. I'm becoming extremely strong," said Tianqi calmly. "I will understand," said Lin Feng, turning around. He landed in front of the flight of long stairs. There were 99,999 steps on it. Lin Feng moved like the wind and descended the flight of stairs. After a short time, he arrived at the foot of the flight of stairs. He looked up at the flight of stairs and started climbing it again. He wanted to see what people who went through that test experienced. "Those who are not honest and serious can't achieve enlightenment," said a voice. Lin Feng didn't care. He continued walking up. He could sense a strange strength. But the voice was right actually. Without being completely honest, it was impossible to achieve enlightenment. However, Lin Feng was different, because he was stronger than the flight of stairs. Nothing could stop him. 33,333 steps. People who make it here must be very honest and have faith they believe. Buddhist cultivators are usually very determined and honest. My second fellow disciple is that kind of person too, thought Lin Feng. He continued walking up. There were several tests as he walked up the stairs, illusions which tested his ambition, intent, honesty, etc. He had to pass all the tests to get the top. It wasn't an easy test, but Tianqi had passed it long ago. Lin Feng was on the 66,666th step. He was starting to experience Buddhist cultivators' lives in illusions. Those lives were all about faith. The only way to continue walking up was faith. Lin Feng was surprised by some illusions too. For example, a Buddhist monk had practiced compassion every day. He had become incredible. He had created great skills to help people become compassionate and so on. He had recruited many disciples. Then one day, he realized that the disciples he trusted the most had betrayed him. They had killed his family members and stolen his skills and techniques. How could people like that be considered Buddhist cultivators? The Buddha delivers all living creatures from suffering and torment? Those illusions looked extremely real, like the king of the 10,000 beasts' lives. If someone who tried to climb up the stairs had any doubt, they couldn't get the top anymore. Lin Feng could imagine how hard the exam was. Lin Feng's heart was racing. He imagined how terrifying it was for people who got to the top and saw demon qi. How devastated were they? Achieve supreme enlightenment? How cruel! How could people achieve supreme enlightenment like that? Chapter 24-22. Buddhist mountains leader Lin Feng continued moving forwards. He saw all sorts of things. For Buddhist monks who had faith and who were determined, passing all those tests was a beautiful thing. But the one who had created that test wasn't a real Buddhist cultivator. He wanted to crush people's faith. That's why it was so cruel. If someone firmly believes until the last minute, it must be even more horrible, thought Lin Feng. He continued climbing up the stairs. Finally, he arrived at the top, after experiencing someone's life. That life was a Buddhist monk's life. He had experienced love and hatred, but he abandoned everything to achieve enlightenment, and in the end, he lost everybody he loved, they died. And in the end he had a miserable life. When Lin Feng reached the last step, he heard a voice say, "Do you still believe?" Hearing such a thing was shocking. Lin Feng took another step and arrived at the very top of the mountain. He sensed the demon qi and heard, "Being a Buddhist in this world is useful if you want to be strong. And it's also the goal when you're a demon cultivator. Demon cultivation and Buddhism are the same. I am a Buddha." Then Lin Feng saw a woman, Buddhist and demon energies intertwining around her. The two antagonistic energies were having a fierce battle. That's the one who experienced the miserable and tragic life. Lin Feng was grim and took a deep breath. He understood why Tianqi had no way to free himself. People who managed to pass the exam of the flight of stairs were extremely determined and motivated, and when they arrived at the top, their beliefs, their faith, were crushed, which also crushed them emotionally. Lin Feng's figure flickered. He arrived in front of Tianqi again and said, "Brother, even if you passed the tragic and sad exam of the flight of stairs, you don't need to be disappointed in everything. Our two teachers and all our fellow disciples love you as a brother, and it's not a lie, it's true." Tianqi shook his head. "If they're honest, it's great, and if it's all a lie, it doesn't matter either. I already gave up. Leave now. Don't disturb me while I practice cultivation. It's my own decision, and it has nothing to do with you. If you accept to reply to a few of my questions, I'll leave," said Lin Feng. Tianqi opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng. "Go ahead. Your faith has been crushed. You don't believe in Buddhism anymore. Why did you turn into a demon cultivator?" asked Lin Feng. "Demon cultivation is merciless and emotionless. The only purpose is to become strong. You can see how strong I've become. Do you think I had the ability to become that strong in the past? Alright, you think you can only be strong that way. So you became emotionless and merciless to become strong. But then again, why do you want to become so strong?" asked Lin Feng. "In this world, only strength matters. If you're strong, you can control everything. If you're strong, you can say you're a Buddha. You can say you're a demon, it all doesn't matter. You can choose to be what you want to be. What was the purpose of the one who made you become a demon?" asked Lin Feng. "He's had a miserable and sad life, and then he achieved supreme enlightenment. He didn't want other people to have the same life as him, so he decided to help others. He is an extraordinary being. If you can't become a demon, then you can continue believing in Buddhism, it doesn't matter anyway. Both can become peerless cultivators," said Tianqi slowly. Lin Feng burst into frantic laughter, like a madman. Tianqi asked, "What are you laughing at?" Second fellow disciple, "I'm laughing because you seem so naive. Since he achieved supreme enlightenment and became a peerless demon, he's supposed to be selfish and focus on his own strength. He's supposed to practice with single-hearted devotion and without distracting thoughts. So, why would he help other people? I'm laughing because you think you achieved supreme enlightenment. You think you're having a good life as a demon cultivator. You're just a tool for him," said Lin Feng. "Now, I will show you how to achieve supreme enlightenment again. If you still don't believe me, then we'll break off ties forever. You say that demon cultivation, merciless and emotionless are the best ways to become strong quickly. How I've never changed. I love my closed ones, I hate my enemies. Back then we were similarly strong. How strong am I now?" demanded Lin Feng. His robe started fluttering in the wind. He stepped forwards, and a terrifying energy filled the air. Tianqi's face changed drastically, and he jumped away. "You think you can escape?" Lin Feng's eyes became pitch black. Tianqi had the impression he was being absorbed into hell. Lin Feng raised his hand and grabbed Tianqi's neck. "Maybe you did achieve supreme enlightenment, but you're SOSO now." He threw Tianqi away, and the latter crashed into a wall. He pulled a long face and stared at Lin Feng, while releasing demon qi in angry waves. "You're angry? You're not qualified to be angry. Our teachers made great efforts to raise you, and you decided to break off ties? You're worthless," said Lin Feng, walking forwards. He raised his fist again. Tianqi was angry. He released ancient imprints and shot them towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng destroyed them instantly. He grabbed Tianqi again and threw him onto the ground violently. A crater appeared under Tianqi, and he coughed up blood. "That's what you call achieving supreme enlightenment. You've become a tiny little insect. You've become weaker after achieving supreme enlightenment. I can kill you in the blink of an eye." Lin Feng looked at Tianqi disdainfully and said, "Don't tell me that you achieved supreme enlightenment, and that it's the best way to practice cultivation, when I'm stronger than you. You say that strength is the most important thing, that Buddhism is demon cultivation, maybe. But in any case, the most important thing is to listen to your heart. I am strong, But I listen to myself, I have my own stories, I have my own life. There are people I love, there are people I hate. I think I'm quite free and unfettered, unlike you, said Lin Feng. Tianqi shivered. And these people who live at the top of the mountain, are they enlightened beings? Snarled Lin Feng, glancing at the crowd icily. He glanced at them, and buildings exploded instantly. Qi rolled in waves towards Lin Feng. He flickered, pointed his fingers at someone, and that person instantly died. Killing you people who have achieved supreme enlightenment is a slight effort, said Lin Feng, rolling up his sleeves. Then he landed in front of Tianqi again and said, "Did you see that clearly? You really achieved supreme enlightenment?" Tianqi was trembling and staring at Lin Feng. His younger fellow disciple was crazy and honest. He had never changed. He loved his friends and hated his enemies. Why change? You passed the test of the flight of stairs and changed, because you thought you had achieved supreme enlightenment. I've also gone through a lot, and I also experienced many lives. I'll show you, said Lin Feng. Suddenly, Tianqi started dreaming. Lin Feng forced him to experience the different lives of the king of the 10,000 beasts. After a long time, the dream ended and Lin Feng said to Tianqi, "I experienced more than you and I didn't change. Why did I manage to do that and you didn't? Even if you don't believe in Buddhism anymore, even if you don't want to be a Buddhism monk anymore, why did you need to change your personality? Why do you exist? What is your purpose in life?" Lin Feng was furious. Tianqi thought he had achieved supreme enlightenment? You mean it's a conspiracy? Asked Tianqi. Of course, come with me, said Lin Feng. Their figures flickered. There was nothing where Lin Feng took Tianqi, but he took out a sword and slashed it. Break! Clear notes sounded as something unseen broke. Fissures appeared in the atmosphere. Tianqi was stunned. Nothing that is invented can escape from my perceptions, said Lin Feng. They continued moving forwards. There was a mountain there and a figure at the top. There was a man there, half Buddha, half demon, holding a woman in his arms. It's him. Tianqi was astonished. Indeed, it's him. He's the one at the center of all this, said Lin Feng. You really think he's helping you? What is his goal? Asked Tianqi. To become a peerless saint, replied Lin Feng firmly. Tianqi was stupefied. Lin Feng said to that person, You're still alive if I'm not mistaken. The person slowly turned around and looked at Lin Feng. His face was blurry. It was impossible to see his features. He was half demon, half Buddha. I think we know one another, said Lin Feng. Lin Feng, said that person. Lin Feng wasn't surprised. He could sense that he did indeed know that person. Who are you? Asked Lin Feng. You'll know in time. Now take him away. He came voluntarily. I didn't force him. There's no need to disturb me, said that person calmly. All right, we'll meet again, replied Lin Feng easily. He left with Tianqi. You know the difference between high-level saints and peerless saints? Asked Lin Feng to Tianqi. I know, said Tianqi nodding. What are conditions to become a peerless saint? Asked Lin Feng. 2 sorts of special original strength at the maximum level. Then you must make them fuse together, said Tianqi slowly. Suddenly, he looked astonished as if he had just understood something. His heart started pounding. Indeed, that cultivator is a terrifying Buddhist monk, and he wants to become a peerless saint. For that, he needs to understand the opposite original strength. Demon original strength. He used you guys to study, said Lin Feng. Tianqi was astonished and trembling. Chapter 24-23. True self. Lin Feng showed Tianqi a lot. Had he made a mistake? Back then, he didn't really care about the outside world. He was free, but he was also very determined on the path of Buddhism. Lin Feng knew that. Mu Chun and Emperor Yu also knew that. But during the previous decades, he had focused on climbing the Buddhist mountain because of his religion. His faith had been ruined, and his soul had been bruised all over. He had decided to focus on becoming stronger. He had decided to become a demon. In a few years, he had become a saint. So he was convinced that it was due to his choice. But now Lin Feng had used facts to show him he was wrong. He had been used by other people. He couldn't withstand a single attack from Lin Feng. Lin Feng was the same as before. And he had become strong too. and he was still becoming stronger quickly. So why was Tianqi becoming stronger quickly? Because he had decided to practice demon cultivation? Lin Feng looked at Tianqi and said icily, "You became stronger, so what? Someone ruined your faith, your personality changed, and you convinced yourself you were happy that way? Don't you feel ashamed, ridiculous, and miserable? Your fate was in someone else's hands." Tianqi took a deep breath and asked himself what he had done wrong. Someone had used him. "Second fellow disciple," said Lin Feng. Suddenly, he didn't sound as cold, he sounded calm and serene. Tianqi slowly turned his head to Lin Feng and looked at him straight in the eyes. "I came here to find some answers. Now, I told you all I wanted to tell you. I hope you'll return to your true self. I can't force you to change. I hope you'll understand who you really are and how to live your life. If you really want to stay like that, I'll just leave immediately, and I will never come back to you," said Lin Feng, staring at Tianqi calmly. Tianqi also wondered who he really was. He closed his eyes. He had to listen to his heart. He had achieved supreme enlightenment once. Now he had to do with his heart. He had to forget about everything. He needed to understand his own emotions. Tianqi visualized many things. He visualized a young Buddhist monk at the top of a mountain meditating. He said to a middle-aged man, "Teacher, why do we practice cultivation? Cultivating our mind and body is important to learn things, to become qualified. It helps you understand yourself. It helps you choose your path," smiled the middle-aged man. He didn't really understand, but the middle-aged man laughed and tapped his head. The little Buddhist monk grew up. He practiced really hard, he traveled all around, he was tired, life was difficult. He went back to the mountain, the middle-aged man was still there, he clapped his shoulders and smiled. Little Chi, you traveled for 2 years." The Buddhist monk who had grown up smiled widely. "Teacher, I feel purer in my heart. I feel infinitely grateful." "I didn't ask you to leave for so long though." Another middle-aged man smiled. The Buddhist monk lowered his head and grinned. Tears appeared in his eyes and flowed along his cheeks. He suddenly felt so sad. He understood. He finally understood. He suddenly opened his eyes. He cut his long black hair, and after a few seconds, he was completely bald again. He looked at Lin Feng. He was still crying, but he still smiled broadly. He felt sad and happy at the same time. He had returned to his true self. Nobody could use him anymore. "Lin Feng, thank you," said Tianqi. Lin Feng smiled broadly too. He knew that the Tianqi he knew had come back to his true self. "Second fellow disciple," said Lin Feng. They hugged. "Let's go back, Lin Feng. I want to see our teachers," said Tianqi suddenly. He was impatient. "All right, let's go back," said Lin Feng smiling. They both left. At that moment, there were still many strong cultivators at the top of the mountain. Tianqi wasn't the only one who had been influenced by Lin Feng. The others were too. They were also struggling in their hearts. But all of that had nothing to do with Lin Feng anymore. In Tiantai, Mu Chun and Emperor Yu gazed into the distance. They were waiting. Lin Feng had left for a few days already, and he hadn't come back. So they were worried. Even though Lin Feng was strong, the Buddhist mountain was mysterious. And they had heard that Lin Feng had tried to fly straight to the top of the mountain. There had been a terrifying battle, and after that Lin Feng had disappeared. In the distance, a beam of light appeared and shot in their direction. They couldn't see anything, but they heard sonic booms. They landed on the ground. A gigantic crater appeared as dust rose up in the air. Then, someone appeared in front of them, and didn't dare look at them. The two were stupefied. Then they saw Lin Feng land there too. "Little Chi," said Mu Chen. He was stupefied. Tianqi was on his knees in front of them. "Teachers, I am a bad disciple," said Tianqi. He sounded extremely sad and guilty. He banged his head on the ground. Dust continued rising around him. "Phew." Emperor Yu and Mu Chen glanced at each other and smiled. Little Chi was back. "Stand up. Little Chi, you're back, we're happy." They walked up to him and dragged him up. Or at least they tried to. He didn't stand up. "Teachers, let me kowtow here," said Tianqi, raising his head. He looked at them. He could see they weren't angry at him. But he still felt so guilty, so sad. He imagined how sad his teachers had been because of him. He felt like a horrible person. Little Qi, you made a mistake, but we don't blame you, said Muqin. Pulling on Tianqi, Muqin is right. Little Qi, you're back. Let bygones be bygones, said Emperor Yu. Tianqi looked at the two teachers. He felt so guilty. Second fellow disciple, stand up. You're making our teachers sad like this. Let bygones be bygones, said Lin Feng. Walking towards Tianqi, Tianqi looked at Lin Feng, and then at his teachers. He kowtowed again and said, your teachings are etched firmly into my mind. Tianqi stood up. Emperor Yu and Muqin were touched and really happy. Little Lin Feng, thank you for having brought little Qi back, said Muqin to Lin Feng. He hadn't thought Lin Feng would succeed. Teacher, we can't blame my second fellow disciple. The leader of the Buddhist mountain is too strong. He's using people who are determined. He makes them lose faith and turns them into pawns, said Lin Feng. He could talk from personal experience now. I understand. I also know what kind of person little Qi is. I never thought the legendary cultivator of the Buddhist mountain would make people change so much. Muqin sighed. Lin Feng, what did you find there? A strong and terrifying cultivator. He practices both Buddhist and demon cultivation. He's a high-level saint who's stuck at that cultivation level. He's trying to make both original strengths reach their maximum level to become a peerless saint. He controls the Buddhist mountain and studies the cultivators who go there to progress. That's why he turns them into demons. He studied demon cultivation using them. How strong? Muqin was astonished. He had never thought the cultivator there would be a high-level saint who wanted to become a peerless saint. How incredible! Yes, we know each other, but I'm not sure who he is, said Lin Feng. He didn't remember whom he knew who practiced both demon and Buddhist cultivation. I'll tell all the disciples of Tiantai that nobody should go there ever, said Muqin slowly. They had to be very careful. Chapter 24-24. Shrines changes in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds. On a public field of the fire shrine, there were flames all around a sacrificial altar. In front of the altar was a strong cultivator wearing a fire robe. He looked dignified and majestic. There were incredibly strong cultivators gathered around. Qiangyu's mother was in the crowd. Fierce battles have started. It's at the point of no return now. The situation is really chaotic. What do you think? Asked the presiding man calmly. Everything is going to change now, said someone. Of course. We can read lots of things about the situation back in the days when it was chaotic. There were great changes. Some shrines were destroyed and some others rose. Of course. Things change all the time. People have different destinies. Many geniuses rise. Many people break through suddenly. Of course, even more people fall behind and get killed. The leader smiled. Indeed. Some of you will rise too. Some of you will die. You all have different destinies. You've probably heard of what happened yesterday. We know. Everybody nodded. I hadn't thought that the legends would be true. All the worlds the shrines have created are connected. And the territories which connect two different worlds are sometimes forbidden territories. It's incredible. These last few years, we've found a dozen worlds connected to the continent of the Nine Clouds. Yes, so there's the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, which is something different. Then there's the continent of the Nine Clouds and 12 worlds that are connected to it. In those other worlds, there are some incredible influential groups. But still, there is no world that is more complete than the continent of the Nine Clouds. The continent of the Nine Clouds is the best and main world. The other worlds were created by gods. The continent of the celestial stars was created by cultivators who control star strength. They might have close relations to the fortune shrine. We have already sent some cultivators to investigate that matter. We'll see if we can find anything related to the fortune shrine and to the god or gods who created that continent. The world of the celestial stars isn't the only one. We sent strong cultivators to all the other worlds to investigate. We're not the only ones doing that. The other shrines are also doing it. The relationships between all the shrines are complex nowadays. We need to help the younger generations grow strong. From now on, the Fire Shrine's God's picture scrolls should be made available for the core disciples. Elder, I have something to report, a woman said to the leader. What? Asked the elder. Maybe that Lin Feng who has a forbidden body is in the lower world. Can we send a peerless saint to kill him? Asked the woman. Xiong Lin had been killed, so she understood that without a peerless saint, they wouldn't be able to kill Lin Feng. The elder's eyes glittered, and he said to the woman, "Last time, you told us about the situation. Back then, the shrines even went to the fortune shrine to oppress some young people, but nothing was done to kill them quickly. Now some of them have already become famous. The shrines made a mistake of strategic importance." The elder said the shrines had made a mistake without feeling ashamed. He continued, "But the shrine's leaders didn't think that the world would become so chaotic later. We forgot or neglected what happened 1,000 years ago. The destiny wheel is not a joke. The top cultivators of the last meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds were really talented. That's why they became strong so quickly. And last time you acted alone, you sent people and you failed. You think the fortune shrine doesn't know about that? They know. Lin Feng's real body has a mysterious strength. Even if we send a peerless saint, it might not work either. Let's forget about it for the time being," said the elder. The woman's face stiffened. "Elder, Lin Feng is becoming strong extremely quickly. He probably has the forbidden body. If we let him become strong, he will overturn the shrines," said the woman. However, the elder just glanced at her and retorted, "You think it's so easy for a low-level saint to become a peerless saint? It's already extremely hard to make one sort of original strength reach its maximum level. So imagine 2 sorts of special original strength. It's even harder. In the history of the world, nobody has ever managed to do that in less than 1,000 years. We still have time. We need to wait until it's the right time. Just have some people spy on him, that's enough." The woman wanted to say something else, but the elder said, "Enough. If Lin Feng has a forbidden body, we'll see. The fortune shrine will also attach more importance to him. Don't you understand these basic principles?" When the woman heard the elder, she pulled a long face. How could she give up and let Lin Feng off? We're not the only ones who want to kill Lin Feng. The other shrines want to kill him too. We shouldn't stir up trouble," said the elder icily. The woman shuddered as she understood something. Shrines could be destroyed in troubled times. Thus, all the shrines wanted to protect themselves and their people, as their people were their assets. They couldn't take risks and let their people die. The fire shrine didn't want to take risks, and then have other shrines attack them in a moment of weakness. This time, I called everybody together, because I want you to do some things. First, I want you to make efforts to teach our young people more things, and help them become stronger. Second, I want you to recruit young geniuses. Third, I want everybody to get ready to battle. The world is chaotic, and it'll be the same as in the past. It will be a very long fight. The fighting may last for 1, 5, or even 10,000 years. He who laughs last laughs longest. We understand, everybody nodded. The worst times were also the best. Who was going to use the losers as stepping stones? Those things had nothing to do with Lin Feng for the time being. As the fire shrine thought, there would be chaos for a very long time. No shrine was stupid enough to attack another shrine straightforwardly, and nobody was stupid enough to use their trump cards immediately either. Also, nobody was stupid enough to send their strongest cultivators first and have them die. Therefore, they focused on raising their young geniuses. They needed to accumulate strength. Lin Feng wasn't strong enough to make the whole world change. He didn't have such a power. Those days, Lin Feng stayed in Tiantai with his teachers and his friends. He taught young people about cultivation. The holy city calmed down again. Many people who wanted to become Tiantai's disciples came. But Tiantai didn't recruit disciples so easily. To become a member of Tiantai, the rule was now to become a student at Champion University first. Then they had to become core students of Champion University. Only then did Tiantai consider their applications. It also meant that Tiantai and Champion University belonged to the same group. Champion University used to be strong, and now they were even stronger. They had always been respected. So many students wanted to study there. Regarding Tiantai, people admired Tiantai because of Lin Feng. Mu Chen, Emperor Yu and Tian Qi were gathered in a courtyard. Mu Chen asked Lin Feng, Little Linfeng, you really intend to go? Yes. I've been in the holy city for half a year. Tiantai is becoming stronger and more stable. I have left 9 bestial saints here to protect Tiantai. They can protect Tiantai for 1,000 years. They will do their best. I need to leave, Linfeng told Mu Chen. But now the passage between the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds and the lower world is open. I can come back to see you anytime anyway. Mu Chen nodded. You stayed here for a while and you did so much for Tiantai. You should indeed leave and do your own things now. Little Qi, are you going to leave too? Teacher, I won't call you great fellow disciple or brother, you're my teacher. Qing Lin is my great fellow disciple or brother. They all left for so many years. I was a demon for so many years too. I should go and travel, said Tian Qi, smiling calmly. He looked soft and kind, like in the past. Even though you were a demon for a while, your fellow disciples might not necessarily be as strong as you. You're already a saint. But you were lucky. This time if you go and travel, be careful. I understand, Tianqi nodded. All right. Old buddy, let the kids leave the nest, smiled Emperor Yu. However, he also looked sad. He didn't want the young ones to leave either. Haha, all right, go, said Mu Chen, laughing wholeheartedly. These little boys don't want to leave either. And Ling, she keeps following little Linfeng everywhere. Tell them after we leave. Let's go now. Linfeng and Tianqi bowed before their teachers and flew up. Mu Chen and Emperor Yu watched them disappear in the distance. They turned around only when the two of them completely disappeared into the horizon. Chapter 24-25. Original Strength Entity. The two of them flew in the sky. Linfeng smiled at Tianqi, second fellow disciple. Where do you want to go? Our teachers were right. Even though I progressed a lot, it wasn't in the best conditions. However, after what happened, I understand myself even better than before. I returned to my truest self. Even though I decided to go and travel, Tiantai is always in my heart. I will do all I can to become stronger in this life and honor Tiantai, our teachers and fellow disciples. I have learned from my past mistakes, Tianqi smiled. He gazed into the distance, as if he were taking an oath. When Linfeng heard that, he was surprised. Tianqi's obsessiveness was impressive. Was it because he had returned to his true self? He didn't understand what Tianqi was thinking about, but in any case, he felt extremely guilty and was becoming obsessive about it. He wanted to dedicate his life to Tiantai and his teachers now. Linfeng, you're extremely talented. Keep up the good work. Someday, you'll become a supreme cultivator in the whole world. You'll control heaven and earth. Then, even if I can't do everything I want for Tiantai, at least you'll be there. Anyway, now I'll travel everywhere in the world, and I'll go back to Tiantai from time to time. Tianqi smiled. Then he asked, what about you? Where are you going now? Vast celestial ancient city and Qi Tian holy town. I have things to do there, replied Linfeng. He wanted to bring Qing Feng back to the animal world, and he also wanted to go to Qi Tian holy town. All right, so we're going in different directions. We'll see each other again, said Tianqi. Yes, take care, brother. They both smiled at each other and headed off in different directions. After Linfeng destroyed the Moon Palace in vast celestial ancient city, things went back to normal, and the city became calm again. However, calmness was relative. Different groups continued competing, but the animal world rarely got involved. After Linfeng arrived in the animal world, he met the third leader. He also got some news from Wu and the others. The third leader was completely stunned when he learned about Linfeng's cultivation level. Things had changed so fast. But Linfeng didn't stay there too long. He left with Qing Feng and Jing again. Qi Tian Holy Town was more agitated than vast celestial ancient city. It had a long history, and there were powerful groups there. After the continent of the 9 clouds had become chaotic, many people had come to Qi Tian Holy Town. Of course, an important reason for that was that back in the days, a group of strong cultivators, including Linfeng, had been to the historical remains. Now, the historical remains were filled with strong cultivators, wanting to explore the mysteries of the historical remains. Of course, they also wanted to know who those chain cultivators were. Lin Feng arrived in the historical remains, standing at the top of a mountain. Qing Feng and Jing were next to him, looking peerlessly beautiful. Some people looked at them, and others also released their godly awareness to look at them. What's this place? Surprisingly, there are so many strong cultivators, asked Jing. Her beautiful eyes twinkled. She had been practicing cultivation for decades, but she was still only a celestial emperor. She was astonished. Historical remains. The founders of all the dynasties sealed this area long ago, and some terrifyingly strong cultivators were stuck inside. So naturally, they attract many other strong cultivators, replied Lin Feng. I wonder if we will be able to find answers. I can sense different kinds of qi. They're all incredibly strong, said Jing. Yes, the qi here has become more powerful with time, it seems, agreed Lin Feng. He flashed forwards and landed in front of a gigantic abyssal hole. He could hear the sound of chains coming from within. Back then, Lin Feng had jumped into it to escape, and the hole had collapsed, so it wasn't as dark as in the past. A terrifying demon intent roared out and shot towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng took a deep breath and spat out fire strength, which surrounded the demon qi and destroyed it. Little boy, you grew up, said a gloomy voice. Your Excellency, who are you or what are you? Asked Lin Feng. He was much stronger than back then, but he couldn't sense the other's strange qi precisely. It was just a pure demon energy, but it was also much more powerful than back then. If you break my chains, I'll tell you, said that person promptly. Lin Feng pulled a long face. The ancestors of the dynasties who were saints were strong, but back in the ancient days, they were probably not strong enough to seal terrifying immortal creatures. Who chained you? What do I have to do to break them? Asked Lin Feng. You don't need to know who chained me. And these chains are a seal, the celestial chains of heaven and earth. If you can find the source of the chains, you'll be able to break them. And if you break them, you'll be rewarded. You can't imagine the incredible things you will obtain, said the voice, heavy with demon strength. Lin Feng was startled. The celestial chains of heaven and earth? Who had created them? He had the impression that the stories of the ancient days were even more complex than what the saints of the town had told him. Let's go, said Lin Feng frowning. He took Qing Feng and Jing away. After a few seconds, they arrived in a frozen place. In the middle of the area a figure was buried. Some crackling sounds spread out, and the figure broke free from the ice, but he could not move away. Back in the days, I didn't see everything. Surprisingly, there are 9 creatures like that here, and they're all chained. The ancestors of the dynasties are definitely not the cultivators who sealed them. I need to ask Qin Shan. Lin Feng took out a jade talisman and contacted Qin Shan. Master Qin Shan, are you there? What is it, Lin Feng? Replied a voice. Lin Feng was astonished. Qin Shan was in the imperial court of the continent of the 9 clouds and Lin Feng was in the continent of the 9 clouds, and the calls still worked. It was probably due to the fact that the passages were open, as it wasn't possible in the past. How's it going in the life shrine? Asked Lin Feng to Qin Shan. I'm recovering. The life shrine is a great place. The rebirth scriptures are really mysterious. Thank you for everything, Lin Feng, it's all thanks to you. I never thought I'd recover someday. Lin Feng laughed and said, it's all thanks to the diviner. He's enigmatic and unfathomable. He has extremely good relations with the life shrine, and he asked them to help me at some point. That's how it started. So we have to be grateful to him. I know, but without you, it still wouldn't have been possible for me. Qin Shan laughed. Right. By the way, I am in Qi Tian Holy Town in the historical remains where you used to be. There are 9 terrifying cultivators here who are in prison. They say those chains are called celestial chains of heaven and earth. You probably know what happened here back then, right? Lin Feng asked Qin Shan. Qin Shan suddenly sounded nervous. Lin Feng, actually, if you try to investigate, you'll probably learn things. But sometimes you have to be careful. Back then, we were all quite strong, but it was difficult for us to become stronger. When you're a low-level saint, it's difficult to break through. But one day we bumped into them. When we saw them, we finally had hopes again. We saw an opportunity to become stronger in them. Back then we practiced cultivation really hard. We kept becoming stronger. We weren't even aware of our cultivation levels. Actually, as we didn't care about naming them, all we knew was that we were breaking through. Who are they? Asked Lin Feng. When the saint of the Holy Spirit dynasty had transmitted the memories of the ancient battlefield to him, Lin Feng had heard about that. They're not cultivators, they are a transformation, an evolution of original strength. They can absorb space strength and turn it into original strength. They evolve in endless cycles. They constantly become stronger. They are heavenly gifted. They are natural original strength. Chapter 24-26. People in white clothes. When Lin Feng heard Qin Shan, he shuddered. They were an evolved form of original strength, heavenly gifted. No wonder their qi didn't resemble cultivators' qi. So the terrifying entity in the abyssal hole is demon original strength. The one in the ice world is water original strength. And there's also an empty space original strength. And a sound wave 1. 9 and 8 original strength bodies, thought Lin Feng. He asked, so back in the days, you started fighting because of those people? However, you didn't manage to absorb them? We all regretted it in the end. For example, me. I used all my strength to turn into a gigantic cauldron to oppress the Soundwave original strength in the valley. The other saints did the same. Nobody won. In the end, we used as much strength as we could to oppress their original strength. Then, we decided to have our descendants come. But we didn't think nobody would be strong enough to do anything until now. It finally changed. I understand. Thank you very much, replied Lin Feng. He put his jade talisman away and ran back to the abyssal pit. Outside of the black hole were two people. They were both very strong and demon qi rolled around them. They were both half-saints. What's going on here? The demon intent is terrifying. It doesn't even look like a person, said one of them. I'm not sure. I have the impression that practicing cultivation next to him is good. It helps us understand demon original strength, said the other one. But practicing here could be dangerous. He could kill us, said the other one. He looked petrified. The energies in the black hole might be more powerful than his own. At that moment, they looked at Lin Feng and the others, and their eyes twinkled. You're a saint too? One of them asked Lin Feng. They couldn't sense Lin Feng's qi, so they didn't understand. Lin Feng just glanced at them, then said to Qing Feng and Jing, wait for me here. I'll be back quickly. All right. Both of them nodded. Lin Feng jumped into the hole. The two cultivators were stupefied. That guy was definitely a saint. Otherwise he wouldn't have dared jump into the abyssal pit. It was completely dark inside. Back then, Lin Feng had been inside, but this time his godly awareness was much more powerful. Lin Feng saw the demon's evil eyes in the chains. The demon said to him, I'm not interested in people who are not demon cultivators. Piss off. Who said I wasn't a demon cultivator? Asked Lin Feng airily. He looked at the demon disdainfully and released demon energy. Instantly, he looked like a demon king. Demon original strength, very good, said the demon. He looked ferocious as the chains emitted crackling sounds. He rose up into the air, and a gigantic hand moved towards Lin Feng. I wonder how strong a body made of original strength is? Lin Feng asked casually. He also released a terrifying demon punch. The entity's punch broke apart, and Lin Feng realized that after it broke, the original strength condensed a hand again, and it was more powerful than the previous one. It moved towards him again too. It was like the entity had used Lin Feng's demon strength too. Good little boy. Lin Feng was stunned then. His body turned into a vortex, and he started absorbing the energies. It was incredible to see. The vortex absorbed the demon's strength. As the original strength disappeared, Lin Feng continued moving down. He wanted to check whether he could absorb all the strength at once. The demon was astonished and roared with rage. The chains shook even more violently. Lin Feng felt danger. Demon strength condensed. 12 ancient demons appeared around Lin Feng, all holding gigantic steel fork. They looked like demon gods as they rose up in the air and started attacking Lin Feng's vortex. The 12 demons hit the vortex with their steel forks. Thunder rocked the pit. The vortex cracked, and the 12 demons roared eagerly. Oomph! Lin Feng grunted icily, and continued releasing strength to oppress the enemy. That demon has a body made of original strength. I can't fight against him, as if I were fighting against a normal saint. Lin Feng suddenly accelerated, arriving in front of the 12 demons. They roared in unison and attacked. Slow, said Lin Feng. Everything around him became slower, including the 12 demons. Lin Feng then flew past them, as trying to kill them was useless anyway. After that, Lin Feng appeared in front of his enemy, and directly used a ruler's sword attack. It pierced through the demon like a knife through butter. The demon directly vanished. Lin Feng's sword destroyed it. However, the nothingness condensed again into a demon still chained. It's not a real body. Lin Feng was astonished. That wasn't a real body. Even when the demon was destroyed, the chains continued constricting him. Those chains seemed indestructible. The demon roared furiously. He wanted to eat Lin Feng. Fire! Lin Feng released fire strength, which burned the entity. At the same time, he suddenly rose back up in the air and headed outside. How annoying. How was it? Jing asked Lin Feng. He can't be killed. I don't know what to do, whispered Lin Feng. Jing was stunned. He couldn't kill that creature. They heard a terrifying roar. Many hands reached for Lin Feng, Jing, and Qing Feng. Lin Feng dragged them away as lights surrounded them, and they continued flying away. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of the original strength creature, but Jing and Qing Feng were vulnerable. Lin Feng was annoyed. He was so strong, even stronger than Qin Shan back in those days. But he couldn't do anything against the original strength entity, either. A group of people appeared outside of the historical remains. They were all wearing white clothes, moving easily and casually, and stylized sharp eyebrows. There, said one of them, pointing to a place. There was a chained entity in the sky. Golden lights flashed there. Let's go. The group of people in white clothes flew and punched the creature in chains. Who? The chained creature shouted furiously. The atmosphere around it exploded. Energies moved towards the group of people. Chains descended from the sky and bound the attacks before moving them into an empty space. At the same time, mighty deployment seals surrounded the chained creature. It looked like a fly in a spider web, buried in chains. Arg! That creature shouted furiously. The atmosphere kept shaking around it. Everybody in the historical remains heard it. Kill those people! Shouted someone furiously. Soundwave strength shook people's eardrums. The people who were in the historical remains raised their heads and saw the group of people in white clothes. At the same time, those figures flickered. What were those people in white clothes doing to the chained creatures? A light curtain appeared in the sky and surrounded the people in white clothes, including the chained creature. Lin Feng arrived, wanting to see what was going on. He was startled too. Sealing strength. These people are strengthening the chains? Do they have anything to do with the celestial chains of heaven and earth? Stop struggling. Our master let you live for one reason. You're captured and tied already. No need to put up a fight, said one of the cultivators in white clothes. Those saints represented their master. How powerful was their master? Chapter 24-27. Gift for a new disciple. The seal was still there. More and more invisible and intangible marks appeared and surrounded the original strength entity. He couldn't move anymore. The group of people in white clothes moved forwards. Their sealing lights became even more dazzling and powerful. The young man in the middle released shining golden lights. At the same time, he started drawing things in the air with his finger. Suddenly, chains appeared around his own body and connected to the chains on the original strength entity. Who are you? Shouted the empty space original strength entity furiously. It could sense that the chains were terrifying. These people were similar to the people who had sealed it long ago. They probably belonged to the same group. Back then the cultivator who had sealed them was even stronger and scarier. From now on, you and me make one. You'll help me make my empty space original strength reach the maximum level. You should be happy about that, said the young man, slowly walking towards the original strength entity. Empty space original strength and sealing strength were two sorts of strength. The original strength entity was a gift he had received from his teacher when he had been accepted as a disciple. It meant his teacher acknowledged him. "Piss off!" shouted the original strength entity desperately. It was going to become this young man's tool? It was very unhappy. It had been created by the earth and the sky. Nature was its mother. It was a heavenly gifted strength of nature. Nobody had managed to capture it in the past. And now what? It was going to become someone's stepping stone. "Body seal!" shouted the young man furiously. The original strength entity slowly started corroding. His original strength slowly started flowing through the chains towards the young man's body. The young man was absorbing it and sealing it in his body. "No!" shouted the original strength entity frantically. However, its entire body turned into smoke and penetrated into the young man's body. It vanished completely. It became an integral part of the young man's body. "You're mine," said the young man in white clothes. The seals in the space disappeared, as the original strength entity had already disappeared. The crowd around was astonished. Many people's hearts were racing. Those people's sealing abilities were just too incredible. They could directly absorb the original strength entities and make them part of their bodies. "Do you want to die too?" shouted the young man furiously. His voice echoed far away in the historical remains. The 8 other original strength entities stopped shouting out, afraid that the group of people would try to capture them as well. The sealing strength of the group of people in white clothes disappeared. They turned around and glanced at the crowd. They looked indifferent and scornful, as if they found all those people worthless because they weren't strong enough. The crowd sensed that those people were making fun of them. But so what? What could they do? They were so much weaker compared to them. They probably came from a powerful and influential group. Their sealing techniques were mysterious and incredible. Only extremely strong cultivators could do such things. They were all saints, and their group attacks were amazing. They had also talked about their master, who also seemed to be a terrifying being. Since the passages to the higher world are open, more and more saints will appear here. But let me tell you one thing. You're too weak to do anything against them. Now piss off. We want to seal this place," said the young man in white clothes calmly. Many people didn't know what kind of creatures the 8 original strength entities were. However, Lin Feng knew about them. Therefore, he understood that these people wanted to seal the place to have access to the original strength entities later on if they had the opportunity. They wanted to use the original strength entities to become stronger easily. If they sealed the area, they would be able to use them whenever they needed them, like a moment before when they had absorbed the empty space energy original strength entity. "Haven't you heard me?" said the young man icily. Some people hadn't moved, as if they hadn't heard him. "Young master, since they cast greedy eyes on the gift our master gave you, we should kill them all," said a person in white clothes standing next to the young man. He sounded as calm as pale clouds and light breeze, as if killing all the people around them was something insignificant and easy. Actually, it really was the case, as those small saints from the lower world were really weak compared to them. Their master seldom showed up in the outside world, but he was really terrifying. The young man in white clothes had had to become a low-level saint to be acknowledged by his teacher. When the crowd heard him, they flew away. It was better not to offend these people. They were crazy and really strong. A gift, meaning his teacher acknowledged him? When Lin Feng heard them, he was astonished. Those original strength entities were a gift to that young man? That was impressive indeed. "Qing Feng Jing, leave now," said Lin Feng. The 2 women weren't strong. If anything happened, they could die easily. All right. The 2 women understood that too, so they left. Quickly, many people disappeared from the historical remains. But some people also decided to stay. Some of them were like Lin Feng, and didn't like it when other people threatened them. And second, they were interested in original strength too. The young man in white clothes inspected the area with his godly awareness, and suddenly looked angry. He hissed. "Surprisingly, some people decided to stay here. They're not afraid to die." "Well then, kill them all." "Yes, young master," said the group of people when they heard their young master. They rose up in the air and released a powerful sealing strength over the historical remains. A gigantic circular ceiling pattern appeared in the sky. Lin Feng frowned. He could sense that a ceiling strength was constricting his body. Seal dragon constriction, shouted a cultivator. A gigantic godly dragon appeared and roared out. Ceiling strength could also kill people. Lin Feng wasn't the only who was being attacked. Everybody who had decided to stay in the historical remains was being attacked and buried in ceiling strength. That kind of strength can be that powerful? Surprising, thought Lin Feng. He released sword intent, but it wasn't sufficient to destroy the godly ceiling dragons. There were more and more dragons around him. It's impressive when so many people attack at the same time. He attacked a dragon directly, and it exploded instantly. The godly dragons were getting closer and closer to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was angry, and released sword intent as he rose up in the air, using his god sword. Fissures appeared in the sky around him. At the same time, he accelerated and moved, condensing fast strength in his sword. The seal sounded like metal shattering as Lin Feng managed to pierce through the energies and appeared outside. He inspected the area with his godly awareness and realized that all the strong cultivators were being attacked like him. The dazzling empty space lights had turned into ancient godly dragons. Those people's ceiling attacks are powerful and strange. I wonder where they are from. He saw the cultivators in white clothes looking at him. He had managed to escape from a dragon constriction attack, attracting their attention. Chapter 24-28. Familiar ceiling strength. The young man in white clothes looked furious and called out, "Celestial horizontal chains." He put his hands on the empty space ancient dragons, and the other strong cultivators moved at the same time. A mighty ceiling strength surged out. Lin Feng saw the cultivators, who were already constricted by godly dragon chains, get constricted by another layer of chains. More and more ceiling layers appeared around them. Lin Feng frowned as invisible and intangible empty space chains descended from the sky. He could sense their strength too. Lin Feng rose up in the air. He wanted to escape from those ceiling chains, which were closely following him. His enemies wanted to constrict him completely. 8 celestial gates, shouted the young man icily. The group of cultivators in white clothes attacked at the same time. Celestial gates appeared in the sky. Lin Feng raised his head as the strange ceiling gates came closer and closer to him. "Close!" shouted a cultivator furiously. The 8 gates descended from the sky. "Slow!" shouted Lin Feng. He was furious. These people considered everybody and everything beneath their notice. They didn't allow anyone to cast covetous eyes on the original strength entities. Lin Feng released slowness strength on the 8 gate, and a terrifying empty space strength, and his figure became blurry. "Great empty space technique," shouted Lin Feng icily. The chains shifted away from his body. He jumped into an empty space void and turned into a beam of light. He reappeared outside of the 8 gates. The group of people was astonished. A low-level saint could escape from their group attack? The attack was extremely powerful. Their sealing attacks were the best in the world. Once someone had been sealed, it was difficult for them to break free, especially once they continued releasing more and more sealing strength. They suddenly realized that Lin Feng was getting closer and closer to them. He was moving very, very quickly. The group of people was astonished. This guy was pretty brave. He dared to get closer to them. Wasn't he afraid? Lin Feng pointed a finger at them. Hell Death strength appeared. The strong cultivators in white clothes started hearing ghosts and demons howl furiously around them. Hell strength surrounded them. Then demons appeared and converged on them. "It's an illusion. Keep cold-headed," shouted the young man in white clothes. Everybody was startled. Their enemy controlled illusion original strength, and he was a low-level saint. They had to be careful. Illusion original strength was a terrifying kind of original strength. At such high levels, one thought sufficed to trap people in illusions. Inside illusions, cultivators could barely protect themselves. They could be killed easily. Those who controlled more than just illusion original strength were even more terrifying. "Seal the space," shouted the group of people icily. Sealing strength filled the area again. They sealed the atmosphere around them. They saw Lin Feng attack their sealing strength frantically, but he didn't manage to destroy it. They smiled icily. "Get ready to attack and kill him," ordered the young man in white clothes. The cultivators in white clothes nodded and released even more sealing strength. Open! They opened the sealing strength and converged on Lin Feng. Life seal. Sealing patterns appeared one after another and moved towards Lin Feng. His life strength was being drained out. He was dying. He overestimated himself. The young man in white clothes smiled icily. At that moment he sensed danger, and their faces stiffened. "Be careful, seal your own bodies," shouted the young man in white clothes. His friends sealed their bodies with the celestial sealing gates. As they did, an incredible destructive strength filled the air, and a curtain of sword chi appeared. How is that possible? When they saw the sword, they were astonished. They were convinced they had killed him. How had he survived? Illusion. They suddenly understood. They were still in the illusion. They hadn't managed to break free at all. And now they couldn't protect themselves inside. It was the problem with illusions. You believed you broke free, but actually you were still inside. It was the scariest part of illusions. They sealed their bodies or ran away, but they were so slow. Their enemy's attack was extremely fast as lightning. The sword instantly cut apart a saint, and his soul dispersed. No! There was a scream as another saint was killed. The god's sword was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, 2 people had been killed. Ancient sealing gates suddenly appeared and moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng withdrew and jumped into an empty space. He was startled to recognize that it was a kind of spirit he had seen a long time ago. Before breaking through to the Huangqi layer, cultivators used their spirits a lot. When they became emperors, their spirits fused together with their blood. They became an inherent strength and ability, a part of a cultivator's body. Emperors could use their blood strength to use similar abilities after that. That was why really strong cultivators' descendants also had incredible spirits, because it was a part of their blood. It was why someone who had an incredible sealing soul also had incredible sealing abilities, especially after becoming an emperor. "You want to die?" shouted the young man in white clothes furiously. He had just been acknowledged by his teacher. Many people admired him, and his teacher had granted him the original strength entities, but told him to pick them up himself. That was why he was there. Their teacher had told them that the world was chaotic, so he had told them to get ready to travel and become famous in a chaotic world. However, they had just come down their mountain, and now someone was already killing them. They were getting killed in the lower world. It was humiliating. If they went back and told their group that some of them had been killed, their fellow disciples would make fun of them. He released a great sealing strength, and the atmosphere became dark. More gates appeared. There are sealing gates everywhere. Lin Feng was impressed. Indeed, he had already seen such gates before, but these were much, much more powerful. "Stop!" shouted someone at that moment. Lin Feng was startled, but the space was sealed, and he didn't know who was shouting. The young man tried to look as if he hadn't heard anything. "D sure you're ignoring me?" asked that voice. The young man in white clothes frowned and came back to his senses. How come he's here? Chapter 24-29. Saint Feng Mo. When Disha heard that, the sealing gates disappeared. Everything returned to normal. "Ninth fellow disciple, what are you doing here?" asked Disha, smiling unhappily and looking at another cultivator in white clothes. He wasn't happy. Before recruiting him, his teacher already had 9 direct disciples, but Disha only admired the first 8 ones, because they were extraordinarily strong. He didn't like the 9th, because he wasn't that strong. He had been a low-level saint for a shorter time than he had. According to rumors, the 9th disciple had become their teacher's disciple only because he knew their teacher from before. Otherwise, their teacher would have never recruited someone like him. Therefore, Disha didn't like him much. After all, he had just become his teacher's disciple, so he had to respect him. He couldn't wait to rise up in the hierarchy of the group, and then he would forget about 9th quickly. "Come and see," said the young man in the sky indifferently. He hadn't been recruited by his teacher very long ago either, only a few dozen years. Someone had taken him to a mysterious and incredibly powerful group. and he had been accepted as a disciple of an incredibly strong cultivator. He didn't know much about his teacher in comparison with the other disciples. He felt a bit lonely. He also knew that Disher didn't like him. Of course, he didn't care about him. "Brother Lin Feng, we finally meet again," said the young man, smiling at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was astonished. He couldn't believe it his eyes. That little boy had become so strong. A long time ago, he had understood that that little boy had an incredible strength. They hadn't seen each other for such a long time. He had never heard of him since. This time, that little boy was the fellow disciple of those people in white clothes. He also understood that those people's influential group was incredible, from what he had heard so far. Their teacher had even offered them those original strength entities. Of course, Lin Feng was happy for him. Back in the days, he was also quite strong. Finally, he had found a group. It was definitely due to his innate abilities and talent. "Duan Feng," smiled Lin Feng. This young man was Duan Feng. They had met in their home world, in Shuiyu long ago. He used to be a member of the imperial family of Shuiyu. When Disher heard them, he was astonished. They knew each other? "Brother Lin Feng, even though I was recruited by my teacher a short time ago, I know you're famous. Back then, I saw you at the meeting of the continent of the 9 clouds, and I also saw the shrines attack you. Recently, I heard you were safe and sound. I was so happy for you. You will definitely become a high-level saint soon." "I've always known that," replied Duan Feng, smiling and landing next to Lin Feng. The crowd of people in white clothes were really stupefied now. Lin Feng, they had heard that name before. This was Lin Feng. They had underestimated people from the lower world. Lin Feng was there too. "So our 9th fellow disciple is one of Lin Feng's friends. What a misunderstanding." Disher spoke up suddenly. He smiled at Lin Feng and said, "Brother Lin, what just happened was a misunderstanding. I'm sorry." Lin Feng glanced at Disher. They were Duan Feng's fellow disciples. He couldn't say much. He just nodded. "Let's forget about it now then." "All right, but Brother Lin, this place is a gift my teacher gave to me. At least the original strength entities within. My 9th fellow disciple also knows that. I hope you won't try and steal those gifts," said Disher. Even though he was polite, he was also firm. He was telling Lin Feng he had to conduct himself well. He didn't want Lin Feng to steal the original strength entities. Duan Feng couldn't say anything about it either. "Your teacher is the demon sealer?" said Lin Feng. It wasn't clear whether he was asking Duan Feng or Disher. "Brother Lin Feng, I'll tell you more about that," said Duan Feng. He looked at Disher and said, "You already have your gift. Bring the others away now." Disher was surprised and looked unhappy. Duan Feng was being a bit too pressing suddenly. "Wait until the teacher respects me enough. I'll show you," thought Disher. He had just become his teacher's disciple. He couldn't be too defiant. He had to submit this time. "No problem, fellow disciple. I'm off. I'll go and see our teacher to thank him. I will also tell him about what the situation looks like here. We'll see what he thinks." The passages between the higher and the lower worlds are open, so I'm afraid this place will attract many people's attention. So we'll see if he wants to take all the original strength entities away or not, said Disher calmly. Duan Feng replied indifferently, "If you like." "Let's go," Disher smiled. He waved and rose up in the air with the others, looking quietly furious. Lin Feng watched them leave. Duan Feng said, "Brother Lin Feng, let's find a place to talk." "All right, let's head to the Holy Spirit Dynasty. Let's talk and move at the same time," said Lin Feng, glancing around. They flew away quickly. "Brother Lin Feng, back then, when I was in the Bahuang province in our home world, someone took me away and taught me a lot. He's my current teacher," said Duan Feng told him. Lin Feng nodded and waited. "At the beginning, he just taught me about cultivation. He didn't let me become his disciple officially, even if I already considered him as my teacher. Long after that, I became a saint, and he decided to recruit me officially. Even though I've always known he was extremely strong, I only realized how strong he really was when I became his disciple officially. The world is gigantic, there are many powerful groups. Apart from the shrines, there are invisible groups, who are mysterious and hold themselves aloof from the world. I'm not surprised, said Lin Feng. He knew a lot more about the worlds these days. Indeed, my teacher is Feng Mo. In our small world, he was known as the legendary cultivator, who could seal incredibly powerful demons, the demon sealer. Many years ago he was very famous. Many strong cultivators feared him in the outside world. He wasn't interested in power, though, and created his own world. Time passed and people seldom heard about him in the outside world. He just became a legend. Many people don't even know who Feng Mo, or the demon sealer is. Only old, powerful cultivators know him. As expected, thought Lin Feng. The great emperor, the demon sealer, was famous in the small world. In the small world, they thought great emperors were already incredibly powerful. To Feng Mo, a great emperor was a tiny little insect. He could kill great emperors with the tip of his finger. Did your teacher create our small world? Asked Lin Feng. There was a sealed area in the Huang Sea. It had the same shape as Shuiyu. According to legends, it had been created by the demon sealer. Yes, Shuiyu is my teacher's native land. Shuiyu is the place where we grew up. But once it was a small country in the great world. My teacher comes from there. After a great battle happened in the ancient days, the continent of the 9 clouds became chaotic and brought people much misery and suffering. Shuiyu was destroyed, and my teacher created a small world and put Shuiyu in there. That's where we grew up. My teacher also lived there once. As a result, he left his traces everywhere, replied Duan Feng. Lin Feng realized he had guessed right. The 3 Lives Emperor's demon clone had been sealed by Feng Mo. What about Empress Shi and the 9 Netherworld's Emperor's graves? What were the details? Also, why did the members of the imperial city of Shuiyu have a sealing gate spirit? Feng Mo lived in Shuiyu before, realized Lin Feng. In his life, he had seen some extraordinary cultivators who had ordinary lives in small places. They hid their cultivation, they had lots of time, and they had lots of families. Maybe that was Feng Mo's case too? So Shuiyu's imperial family, your family the Duans, do they have your teacher's blood? Lin Feng asked. Even though he never told me the truth, I think it's the case. But he must have many families, and he doesn't really care, I guess. He just created Shuiyu. A family is like a house he would have built. If I had been weak, he wouldn't have cared about me, and he wouldn't have recruited me, replied Duan Feng. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, such cultivators had feelings, but only to a certain extent. They didn't really care about their family members. Duan Feng probably had such a relationship with Feng Mo, because they had the same blood and he was talented. Chapter 2430. Lost Country. The Holy Spirit Dynasty was the same as before. The previous time Lin Feng had been there, the Fire Shrine's members had sent some people to attack Lin Qiongsheng. Luckily, Lin Feng had arrived and had pretended to be a strong cultivator from the Fortune Shrine. Now Lin Feng didn't know where his son Lin Qiongsheng was, or what had become of him. At the same time, because of the particular status of the Holy Spirit Dynasty, the other dynasties didn't like it. They wanted to destroy it, but as long as Lin Feng was alive, nobody would be able to destroy them, including the animal district. There were many strong cultivators in the region since the lower and higher worlds were now connected. But the Holy Spirit Dynasty was the same as before, it hadn't changed. Lin Feng was famous, and that was probably one of the reasons why people feared him. Lin Feng and Duan Feng arrived. Holy Emperor Ling came out to greet Lin Feng personally, because he liked him a lot. He was the father of their future Holy Emperor. Lin Feng had transmitted his blood to their descendants, so they were connected now. Lin Feng. Many strong cultivators came out to greet him. They looked at him and didn't notice anything about him particularly, but they didn't doubt that he had become much stronger. Dozens of years had passed. It wasn't a long time, but they could see that Lin Feng had changed. Holy Emperor, Lin Feng replied. Is Qiongsheng here? Holy Emperor Ling shook his head and said, I don't know where he is. I haven't heard anything from him since. He never contacted me. He's a bit too hands-off, said Lin Feng, smiling wryly. Lin Feng, who's this? Asked Holy Emperor Ling, looking at Duan Feng. His qi looked extraordinary. My friend Duan Feng. Lin Feng, Duan Feng, let's go inside to talk, said Holy Emperor Ling. They all entered the dynasty's territory. Holy Emperor Ling, so many years have passed. Has Qitian Holy Town changed a lot? Asked Lin Feng. Of course, there have been great changes. All the dynasties have changed. The Holy Spirit dynasty is the dynasty which has changed the least, especially since many strong cultivators from the higher world come here. There are many battles and so on. Changes are normal and expected. The reason why not so many things changed here, in the Holy Spirit dynasty, is that we're half stuck. Half stuck? Asked Lin Feng. Yes. You know there are conflicts between the other dynasties and the Holy Spirit dynasty. They don't want us to rise. We can't do anything without being watched. They just don't dare attack us directly, that's all, said Holy Emperor Ling. Lin Feng nodded and said, It's going to stop. Holy Emperor, send some people to the most powerful groups and have them convey a message from me. Tell them I want all their leaders to come to the Holy Spirit dynasty, Lin Feng said calmly. Even though he sounded calm, it made Holy Emperor Ling and the other strong cultivators of the Holy Spirit dynasty tremble. How crazy! Have all the dynasty's leaders come? I don't think they'll come, replied Holy Emperor Ling. Just transmit my message. If they don't come, it's their choice, said Lin Feng. Holy Emperor Ling smiled and nodded. All right, we'll see if they come. It's their decision. The first thing Holy Emperor Ling wanted to do didn't surprise Lin Feng. He organized a huge banquet for him. But Lin Feng didn't want one, so he said, I'm just going back to where I was before. You can let the other dynasty's leaders stay in those great and magnificent places. All right, I'll be waiting for you here, said Holy Emperor Ling. He knew how Lin Feng was. He smiled as Lin Feng and Duan Feng left. Lin Feng went back to the place he used to share with Tang Yu, and they watched the sunset. Duan Feng, where is your teacher? Asked Lin Feng out of curiosity. Feng Mo was a mysterious and legendary cultivator. Where had he created his group? Of course, if it's a secret, you don't need to tell me, Lin Feng added quickly. It's all right. It's not a secret for everybody. I would guess most of the shrine's saints know where he established his sect. Why have I never read anything about him then? Asked Lin Feng. He didn't understand. Because even if you had read about it, you wouldn't necessarily be able to go there, so writing about it would be useless, said Duan Feng with a smile. My teacher's sect is in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds, in a place called Sealed Imprint Mountain. Brother Lin Feng, do you know where Sealed Imprint Mountain is in the imperial court of the continent of the Nine Clouds? How could I guess? He shook his head. Duan Feng was creating suspense. The Lost Country, Duan Feng stated calmly. Lin Feng was astonished. The Lost Country? He had heard that name before, of course. Sealed Imprint Mountain is situated in the Lost Country? Whispered Lin Feng. Indeed. One of the 7 forbidden territories, the Lost Country, said Duan Feng, bursting into laughter when he saw Lin Feng's flabbergasted face. Apart from Sealed Imprint Mountain, other people couldn't go there unless someone gave them directions. How do you go there? Asked Lin Feng. He was really curious now. The Lost Country was one of the 7 forbidden territories, a famous place. According to legends, the Lost Country used to be an incredible country with many strong cultivators. There used to be many demon and ghost cultivators there. One day, they faced a catastrophe. The gods abandoned them, and their nation had turned into ruins and desolation. Now many incredible cultivators were sealed in there, and many people had died there. Of course, it was a legend, which didn't prove anything, and going inside could be deadly. Few people dared go there. Yet now Duan Feng was telling Lin Feng that Sealed Imprint Mountain was in the Lost Country. We have a special way to avoid danger. We can go straight to the sect. The sect is in a sealed area. It's not really a mountain. It's a world created by my teacher. I see. I'm curious. I wish I could meet your teacher, murmured Lin Feng. I'll take you there sometime. Even though his world can't be as big as the continent of the Nine Clouds, it's still amazing there. Your teacher doesn't allow people to come and go as they wish, right? Lin Feng smiled. Correct. Most people don't know about the world. Only some people who practice in Sealed Imprint Mountain know about it, and can go there. You can only go with prior authorization. I understand, Lin Feng nodded. Outside of the Holy Spirit dynasty, an incredible qi filled the air. A group of strong cultivators arrived and entered the Holy Spirit dynasty. One of the guards stopped them and smiled. Please stop here. Is this a joke? The Holy Spirit dynasty invited us. And this is how you treat your guests? Have Holy Emperor Ling come here, shouted the leader of the group icily. Don't prevent Holy Emperor Tianxi from entering, shouted a voice in the distance. The guards suddenly understood. These people were from the Tianxi dynasty, and Holy Emperor Ling came out personally to greet them. Holy Emperor Ling, I trust you have been doing well since we last met, said Holy Emperor Tianxi, entering the Holy Spirit dynasty's territory. I'm all right. And guards, don't stop anyone who comes here. Many dynasties' leaders are coming to pay us a visit. Greet them warmly, said Holy Emperor Ling. Yes, sir, Holy Emperor, replied the guards. They thought of Lin Feng. He had come back, and now something big was going to happen. He had invited all the leaders of the dynasties here. Where is Lin Feng? Asked Holy Emperor Tianxi. He arrived in a great hall where a banquet had been prepared. He's here. He'll come soon, I guess. Holy Emperor Ling smiled. He was convinced Lin Feng knew what was going on. We came because he invited us. Why isn't he here? What's that supposed to mean? Asked Holy Emperor Tianxi. He sounded unhappy. You can ask him when he arrives. Holy Emperor Ling smiled. Lin Feng could take care of everything. More and more people arrived outside. All the leaders were arriving. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.